Good evening. Have a seat. Good evening. Have a seat. I'd like to welcome everybody to the special meeting of the Planning Commission for March 11th. For viewers watching at home, some members of the public may be participating via video conference or teleconference. Could everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Ferris?
Here.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut?
Here.
Commissioner Link?
Present.
Commissioner McMahon?
Here.
Chair Lanson?
Here. We will go on to item 4. Tonight we have with us the Deputy Community Development Director, Fabiola Meliker. Are there any written comments, announcements, or continuances?
There were comments received, and the supplemental packet has been distributed to the Commission and also posted on the city's website.
And I do have those comment cards, Commissioners, that I'll pass out once we open the hearing. Public comment, nor will we go to at this point, though. This is a special meeting, so there is no public comment. And if you did submit a public comment card, it'll be put on for the item number that we're going to be getting to in a minute, which we'll actually get to now. Item 6, will the Secretary please open the public hearing?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider Agenda Item 7A, that the Planning Commission make a recommendation to the City Council on the following applications, including certification of the Environmental Impact Report, which have been filed for the construction of a comprehensive cancer center medical office building associated with properties located at 400 East Rolling Oaks Drive and 355 West Jans Road. Environmental Impact Report 2022-70775 EIR State Clearinghouse number 20230400287 and Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program to identify and evaluate potential environmental impacts, require mitigation of potential significant environmental impacts, and establish a reporting and monitoring program to ensure that any required mitigation measure for the project is implemented. General Plan Amendment 2022-70587LU to change the general plan land use designation from neighborhood very low to commercial neighborhood for the property at 400 East Rolling Oaks Drive, APN numbers 681-0-180-265 and 681-0-180-275 to accommodate the proposed Cancer Center medical office building and change the land use designation from institutional to neighborhood low, greater than 2 to 4.5 units per acre for the property at 355 West Jans Road, APN 522-0-270-135. There's no development, concept, or project proposed for the property at 355 West Jans Road at this time. Zone change 2022-70733-Z to allow a zone change from rural exclusive 1 acre minimum RE to commercial office height overlay, CO/COH with height overlay limited to the building footprint and at the finished floor levels as indicated in the plan materials to allow a building to be up to 44 feet 2 inches tall for the property at 400 East Rolling Oaks Drive to accommodate the proposed Cancer Center medical office building at a maximum height of 44 feet 2 inches and change the zoning from public, quasi-public, and institutional lands to facility zone, P-L, to residential plan development, 4.5 dwelling units per acre, RPD-4.5U for the property at 355 West Jans Road. Development permit 2022-70732DP to allow the demolition of all improvements on the property and construction of an approximate 58,412 square foot medical office building that accommodates various cancer medical and patient services. The building height would range between 27 feet and 44 feet 2 inches at its highest point. Primary access would be off Rolling Oaks Drive and secondary access off Los Padres Drive with open and covered parking provided on the property. The project also includes the installation of hardscape landscape utilities, retaining walls, and associated grading on slopes steeper than 25%. Parcel map waiver 2022-70736-PMW to merge 2 lots commonly referred to as APNs 681-0-180-265 and 681-0-180-275 into 1 legal lot of record. Protected tree permit 2022-70735 PTP to allow removal of 14 protected protected oak trees consisting of 11 coast live oak Quercus argifolia trees, 2 holly oak Quercus ilex trees, and 1 valley oak Quercus lobata tree, and a plant replacement trees at a 3-to-1 ratio, resulting in a total of 42 oak trees consisting of 26 24-inch box size and 16 36-inch box size oak trees being planted on site. Additionally, this PTP would allow encroachment within the protected zone of protected trees consisting of 5 coast live oak Quercus argifolia trees, 1 valley oak Quercus lobata trees, and 1 Toyon heteromelis arbutifolia tree, and landscape plan check 2023-7008-LPC technical review of proposed on-site landscaping located at 400 East Rolling Oaks Drive, proposed medical office building site, and 355 West Jans Road, density transfer receiving site. The applicant is HCA Healthcare Los Robles Hospital.
I am amazed every single meeting how you're able to do that so efficiently. Before we get to the staff, I want to, for myself, disclose that I did meet with neighbors from the project and as well as members of the applicant team. I want to disclose that. Any other commissioners have a similar type? Commissioner Callahan?
I also would like to disclose that I met with the HCA team. We walked the site, and also with the Radicevic family who live on Rimrock, and we walked their property.
Seeing no more ands, we will go to the staff. And Senior Planning Kendall, I think we're going to get the report from you.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Planning Commission, and public. The project before you is, as just stated, a request to allow the development of a comprehensive cancer treatment center at 400 East Rolling Oaks Drive and the related land use designation and zone change at 355 West Jans Road. Please know that I am joined at the dais by Planning Manager Stephen Kearns, Senior Planner Scott Kolwitz, and additional city and county agency staff are available to answer any questions you may have. The applicant team will also provide their own comments following the staff presentation. During this presentation, I'll start with reiterating the request one more time, briefly discuss the process to date, go over the unique procedural environment involved with this project, get into the details of the project while briefly discussing issues of interest that have come up in public comment, and close with staff's recommendation. The request before you this evening is to make a recommendation to the City Council on the following applications which have been filed for the construction of the Comprehensive Cancer Center Medical Office Building associated with properties located at 400 East Rolling Oaks Drive and 355 West Jans Road. These involve an environmental impact report and mitigation monitoring and reporting program, or MMRP. This was conducted to identify and evaluate potential environmental impacts, require mitigation of potential significant environmental impacts, and establish a reporting and monitoring program to ensure that any required mitigation measures for the project are implemented. A general plan amendment is also requested to change the general plan land use designation from neighborhood very low to commercial neighborhood, and a zone change from rural exclusive 1 acre minimum to commercial office with a height overlay for the property at 400 East Rolling Oaks Drive, and change the land use designation from institutional to neighborhood low 1, and change the zoning from public, quasi-public, and institutional lands and facilities to residential plan development with a maximum of 4.5 dwelling units per acre for the property at 355 West Jans Road to avoid any loss of residential capacity. A development permit is requested to allow the demolition of all improvements on the property at Rolling Oaks and construction of an approximately 58,412 square foot medical office building that accommodates various cancer-related medical and patient services. In addition, there is a request for a parcel map waiver to merge 2 lots into 1 legal lot of record. The municipal code allows for the director to approve a parcel map waiver to merge 4 or fewer existing parcels. While the parcel map waiver is not dependent on the proposed development and could have been approved by the director, the applicant has agreed to have the parcel map waiver reviewed in conjunction with the Commission's consideration of the other entitlement applications. In addition, a protected tree permit is requested to allow removal of 14 protected oak trees and to plant replacement trees at a 3-to-1 ratio. Additionally, this protected tree permit would allow encroachment within the protected zone of 5 protected trees. And lastly, a technical review of proposed on-site landscaping has been conducted. The associated landscape plan check is an administrative process that will be implemented as a project condition of approval. So I'll now describe where we're at in the overall entitlement process. A pre-application was submitted on October 22nd in 2021 for a preliminary assessment of the proposed project. During that review, it was determined that both the zoning and land use element category designations would have to be changed to allow the proposed medical facility use. As such, a general plan amendment is required and was initiated by the City Council on July 5th, 2022. At that point, the applicant began submitting, and staff began full evaluation of the plans and commenced the environmental review process and coordinated with the applicant team to refine the project. Throughout the review, several revisions to the design and site planning were requested and accepted by the applicant team. Notices were published and posted at both sites of the project in April 2023, October 2023, and February 2024, in addition to all required notices for the environmental impact report. The Planning Commission's role this evening is to consider the project and make a recommendation to City Council, who would then hold a public hearing and take final action on the proposal. As just stated, the property at 400 Rolling Oaks is zoned for residential use, which does not allow the proposed medical facility use. As such, the applicant is required to request a zone change and a general plan land use designation change. The zone change request is to commercial office. The CO zone allows medical offices and laboratories as an allowed use subject to the approval of a development permit, which is before you this evening. This commercial zone is frequently found near residential zoning categories. Consistent with the purpose of the CO zone and in practice, the CO zone acts as a transition space between higher intensity uses, open space and/or Route 101, and residential uses. The proposed zone would be changed from rural exclusive 1 acre minimum to commercial office and commercial office with a height overlay, which I will discuss more later. The CO zone would be consistent with the existing zoning nearby, as seen here in pink. In addition, the subject properties at this location are designated as neighborhood very low in the land use element of the 2045 general plan. To accommodate the proposed medical office building use at the site, a general plan land use amendment to commercial neighborhood is required. The commercial neighborhood land use designation would be consistent with the existing land uses in the vicinity, as you can see here, again in pink. In the judgment of city staff, these land uses have been found to be compatible with one another in terms of both physical development standards and allowed uses. However, due to state law, specifically the Housing Crisis Act, changing a property's land use element category from a residential type, which prescribes a certain amount of residential development potential, in this case 1 to 2 units per acre, to a non-residential type, or one not allowing residential development, must be accompanied by concurrent changes restoring that residential development potential elsewhere in the jurisdiction, so that the total amount of residential development capacity stays the same or increases. To be more specific, on October 9th, 2019, the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, or HCA, commonly known as Senate Bill SB 330, was signed into law to respond to the California housing crisis. The HCA prohibits the city from amending a general plan or zoning ordinance in a way that would individually or cumulatively reduce a site's residential development capacity. This restriction does not apply if the city concurrently changes another parcel or parcels within the jurisdiction to ensure that there is no net loss in residential capacity. Per the state law, concurrent means that the action is approved at the same meeting of the legislative body and in a manner that ensures added capacity is effective at the same time as the reduction in residential capacity. I'll stop here to explain that residential development capacity equals the size of the property times the maximum density allowed. Since the subject site at Rolling Oaks is designated as neighborhood very low residential, it has a maximum density allowed of 2 units per acre. That maximum density times the size of the lot, or 4.74 net acres, gives the site a maximum development potential or capacity of 9 residential units. Partial units are not counted. Therefore, the proposed land use element designation change at the project site, Rolling Oaks, from a residential type to a non-residential type or commercial type to be legally viable as part of the project and suite of requests tonight, the applicant is also requesting to change the land use category designation of a 2.15 acre parcel at 355 West Jans Road from institutional to neighborhood low 1 a residential designation. The total residential development capacity at that site, with the proposed land use designation change, would be 9 units as well. I'll now go into the project details, starting with the component located at 355 West Jans Road. The property receiving the residential capacity is a parcel located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Jans and Lynn Roads, which is part of the larger Los Robles Regional Medical Center. The site has been previously disturbed and is developed with a surface parking lot used by employees of the medical facilities in the area. The site is bounded by medical uses to the north and east, Lynn Road and open space to the west, and Jans Road and residential uses to the south. Again, the proposed land use designation at this site would be changed from institutional to neighborhood low 1. The neighborhood low 1 land use designation would be consistent with the existing land uses in the near vicinity. To remain consistent with the land use change, the proposed zone would also be changed from PL, or public lands, to RPD 4.5U. In the judgment of city staff, the land use and zoning designation have been found to be compatible with those in the surrounding area in terms of both physical development standards and allowed uses. The RPD 4.5U zone allows residential uses as an allowed use subject to the approval of a development permit. There is no development project proposed for the property at 355 West Jans Road at this time. The land use element category designation and zoning change are being requested to satisfy the requirements of the Housing Crisis Act. Should a development project be proposed in the future, all required applications and entitlements will be evaluated per state and local regulations, guidelines, and standards at that time of application, including impacts to existing uses and their reliance on the existing parking spaces provided on that property. Moving on to the development proposed at 400 East Rolling Oaks. The location of the proposed development is at a 4.74 net acre lot, which was previously disturbed. You can see here a parking lot, hardscaping, graded pad, and the foundation of the previously existing Young Set Club, an active daycare and camp, which was started operation in the mid-1970s and was demolished around 2019. In 2015, the Planning Commission approved a senior living facility at the same site, which was appealed and subsequently denied by the City Council. The property lies within the southern portion of the city and is bound by Rolling Oaks Drive and medical uses to the north, Los Padres Drive and multifamily residential to the west, designated open space to the south, and residential uses within an unincorporated county island to the east. It is located 500 feet southeast of the 101 freeway. The proposed concept involves the demolition of the remaining Young Set Club development to accommodate the construction of a new approximately 58,412 square foot, 2-story outpatient medical treatment facility with a maximum height of 44 feet and 2 inches. The plan involves grading the site, including on slopes steeper than 25%, to accommodate the improvements, which include, but are not limited to, the proposed building, a healing garden, retaining walls, parking facilities, hardscape, landscape, and utilities. The Cancer Center would include 233 surface parking spaces with primary access from Rolling Oaks Drive and secondary access off of Los Padres Drive. Landscaping is provided throughout the parking areas and perimeter of the site. The project proposes the removal of 14 oak trees to be replaced on site. The objective of the project is to provide a comprehensive cancer center that would consolidate multiple oncology and medical-related functions in a single campus. The facility would include patient rooms, treatment services, office area for staff and physicians, and other common spaces. By providing an expansive and more comprehensive scope of services within a dedicated cancer center, the opportunity is created for more efficient and complete care delivery. The project's architectural design is a Mission Revival style. The proposed building's rectangular shape, 2-story design, height, which ranges from 23.5 feet to just over 44 feet, and size of the building, 58,412 square feet, are similar to and compatible with the nearby properties. With the guidance of public input and staff direction, the applicant team paid careful attention to the ways in which the architectural design transitions from the Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital nearby to nearby residential apartments. The proposed building provides this transition and architectural interest through gabled and hipped roof forms, a shed-roofed or covered walkway along the first floor's northwest and east elevations, and a carport at the main entry. The exterior walls of the building are earth-tone colors, primarily consisting of off-white, light browns, and tan. The overall structure would be composed of a variety of materials, including metal wood-look beams and decorative ceramic wall tile. The roof material consists of clay tiles, and building walls contain trim and architectural details such as corbels. These colors and materials blend and are similar to the surrounding terrain and built environment, including the adjacent medical office buildings and Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital to the north and northwest, the apartments to the west, and the single-family residences to the south. As such, the building design and materials comply with the city's architectural design guidelines for construction and development of residential, industrial, and institutional projects. The project was also evaluated for consistency with the freeway corridor design guidelines, which apply to properties within 1,000 feet of the freeway centerline. In this case, the closest property boundary is approximately 860 feet from the freeway centerline, although much of the building is screened by the surgical hospital immediately north. The project is consistent with these freeway corridor guidelines in that the earth tone colors blend and integrate with the hillside backdrop. The articulation of the building walls and windows provide visual interest and break up the building mass. The building is viewed at an angle from the 101 freeway. And varying levels of gable and hip roof elements provide a sloping visual transition to the slopes to the east and north towards the freeway corridor. Overall, staff finds that the project's architectural design is compatible with surrounding development and complies with the guidelines and standards of the municipal code. As illustrated here, the proposed building height will be similar to the existing apartments to the west and similar to or less or shorter than the medical office buildings to the north. The proposed project includes a height overlay limited to the building footprint to allow a building to be up to 44 feet and 2 inches tall above the finished floor levels, rather than the 25 feet maximum normally required. Zoning overlays are an additional layer of planning controls that are applied to properties as tailored zoning districts with a specialized set of regulations. This figure, viewed from Rolling Oaks Drive and the surgical hospital, shows the building will appear as a 2-story development, with the majority of the building at approximately 39 feet 5 inches, and only a small portion of the north elevation of the building will reach the maximum of 44 feet 2 inches. The height of the building is measured from the existing grade or the finished grade, whichever is less. The height will be graded, the site will be graded, and the finished grade will be set into the existing grade between approximately 0 to 10 feet, and additional fill will be placed on the south side of the building, resulting in the building appearing to be 16 feet shorter as viewed from the south elevation compared to other elevations. This side, viewed from the site's parking lot, shows the building will appear as a 1-story development with a perceived height of approximately 23 feet and 5 inches. This view from Los Padres Drive and the apartments nearby shows the building will appear as a 2-story development, with the majority of the building at approximately 39 feet 5 inches, and the hip roof's peak will reach the maximum of 44 feet 2 inches. And finally, when viewed from the eastern property line and drive aisle, the building will appear as a split-level development with a maximum height of approximately 39 feet and 5 inches for a portion of the property, and the enclosed stair tower and the rooftop mechanical room being unlikely to be seen from this view. The proposed cancer center consists of the new medical office building with primary access from Rolling Oaks Drive and secondary access from Los Padres Drive. Street-level parking would be provided on-site, including a drop-off area for patients on the north side of the building. The vehicular and pedestrian circulation layout has been reviewed and found to comply with the municipal code, building code, fire code, and ADA standards. The cancer center would include 233 surface parking spaces, exceeding the municipal code requirements of 225 parking spaces. Of the 233 parking spaces, 26 would be electric vehicle charging spaces, and 28 would be clean air stalls. 183 parking spaces would be open to the sky and 50 would be located underneath an approximately 5,000 square foot carport with solar arrays just south of the proposed building. In addition, the Cancer Center would include pedestrian and bicycle facilities that provide safe, continuous accessibility, including pedestrian pathways, crosswalks, and 24 on-site bicycle parking spots. Traffic impacts were independently reviewed by the city's Traffic Engineering Division, who concluded that the project will not have a significant impact on existing traffic patterns or vehicle miles traveled. The applicant will be required to pay the citywide traffic mitigation fee to help contribute towards the cost of future improvements at the intersections identified in the city's traffic impact mitigation fee nexus study. To reiterate, all parking required by the facility will be accommodated on the subject property. The project does not rely on the parking at the Tosh facility or the adjacent street parking. The surface parking lot is all on site and part of the site. Everything north of the existing concrete and landscape finger, which you can see here in this image, will remain. The off-site existing 90-degree parking spaces seen at the top of the image will remain as they are. The existing berm west of the existing driveway approach will be graded to provide new surface parking spaces, and the existing landscape planter berm along Rolling Oaks will remain with renewed landscaping. As illustrated here, the building pad elevation will be approximately 5 to 10 feet lower than the existing elevation. Grading will involve 30,335 cubic yards of cut and 17,865 cubic yards of fill, resulting in 12,470 cubic yards of earthen material being removed from the site. The height overlay mentioned previously will again only allow the increased height from the finished floor level of the building pad, which will be lower than the existing grade. The majority of the encroachments into slopes which are 25% or steeper, which are the yellow areas seen here, are on the east and south sides of the building and are required to construct the drive aisle, level parking spaces, and associated circulation, and to provide the fire department access to the rear of the building, as well as the parking lot improvements consistent with the municipal code and fire regulations. To achieve this grading approach, retaining walls will be constructed primarily along the southern and eastern property lines. The retaining walls will utilize a tiered approach to both break up the height of the retaining walls and to introduce landscaping to soften the walls. The tiered walls will range in height from approximately 7 feet 4 inches to a maximum of 12 feet. Staff supports the retaining walls exceeding the normal maximum of 6 feet for purposes of complying with municipal code and fire regulations, and to reduce the amount of grading without negatively impacting public views of the property. As conditioned, all retaining walls and exposed components on the project site are required to incorporate the design and materials from the proposed building to unify the project's design. The Comprehensive Cancer Center development would provide 14% landscape coverage, or approximately 17,000 square feet, including enhanced perimeter landscape treatment. An approximately 20-foot landscaped area would be provided along Rolling Oaks Drive and Los Padres Drive and the south property line, and an approximately 9-foot landscaped area would be provided on the east side of the property outside of the 25-foot utility easement which runs along that eastern property line. All landscaping would utilize low water use trees and shrubs and would be consistent with Ventura County fire development standards. The project complies with code requirements for landscape setbacks and parking lot coverage minimums. A total of 108 trees were identified on the property, of which 75 are not protected trees and 33 are protected trees. The project would result in the retention and protection of 17 protected trees and the removal of 14 protected oak trees, consisting of 11 coast live oak trees, 2 holly oak trees, and 1 valley oak tree. The city's oak tree consultant has reviewed the oak trees requested for removal and determined that the tree removals are necessary to allow site preparation and grading activities for the proposed building and associated site improvements. The city's oak tree consultant also took into consideration the feasibility of transplanting the oak trees proposed for removal. However, transplanting was not recommended for this specific project due to the significant root loss that would occur, the sloping topography, and the uncertainty that the trees would survive even if appropriate care is taken. None of the existing protected trees were planted by the Young Set Club project as required mitigation trees. The removal of the 14 protected oak trees results in the project being conditioned to plant 42 oak trees on site. The proposed landscape plan does, however, identify a total of 45 coast live oak and valley oak trees to be planted on the project site, exceeding the required number of replacement trees. Further, replacement trees have been strategically located around the perimeter of the subject property to provide a physical barrier between the residential structures and surrounding roadways. Such placement would provide visual screening to and from the roadways and reduce noise entering the site. Therefore, staff supports the proposed replacement tree layout. A parcel map waiver is requested to legally merge the lots together. The larger lot to the south of the yellow line comprised the site of the prior daycare center facility, while the smaller lot was designated as a public road easement in 1973 as part of the extension for East Rolling Oaks Drive. After study and public testimony, Holland Drive was constructed in lieu of extending East Rolling Oaks Drive to the east, and therefore the road easement is no longer needed for that purpose. In order to develop the site, the two parcels must be merged into one parcel of record. It's worth mentioning at this point why this site was chosen by the applicant and supported by staff. The proposed cancer center's location adjacent to the Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital would directly facilitate meeting the project's objectives and the effective provision of the previously mentioned consolidated services. Unlike the full-service and far more active and complex Los Robles Hospital, the surgical hospital nearby provides the ideal location for these overnight oncology-related procedures because it is a controlled and quiet environment. In accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, a comprehensive evaluation of the potential environmental impacts for this project was performed. The EIR evaluated the project's physical development and uses reasonable and foreseeable impacts. This evaluation determined that the project would not have a significant impact on the environment with the implementation of mitigation measures. The project underwent a 30-day public notice of preparation process with a scoping meeting in April of 2023, and the EIR underwent a 45-day public review period between December 22nd, 2023 and February 5th of this year. The EIR was submitted to the State Clearinghouse. During the 45-day public review period, staff received correspondence from 24 members of the public and one public agency, Caltrans. Mitigation measures have been written to reduce possible impacts on biological resources, cultural and tribal resources from potential hazardous materials, from noise, and from wildfire. The city prepared responses to comments for the final EIR. None of the comments received on the draft EIR for this project merit any substantive change to the environmental analysis or conclusions contained in the draft EIR. None of the thresholds required to recirculate the draft EIR were triggered, and appropriate measures are in place to ensure no significant adverse environmental impact results from the project. The CEQA findings for the EIR included in the response to comments and mitigation monitoring and reporting program are included for the Planning Commission's information. The mitigation measures are incorporated into the project resolutions as conditions of approval to ensure the project will have no significant adverse effect on the environment. Staff does recommend the Planning Commission recommend certification of the final EIR prepared for the project in accordance with CEQA. The proposed project has been designed to meet the intent of the city's general plan, standards, codes, and policies. The proposed building design and site layout integrates well with surrounding development and provides a benefit to the community and surrounding region. Based on the analysis and findings contained in this presentation and the report attached to the agenda, staff recommends the Planning Commission make a recommendation to City Council to certify the EIR written for this project and approve this project subject to the conditions of approval and the attached resolution. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission again adopt the resolution based on the findings and subject to the conditions contained therein, recommending that the City Council adopt a resolution to certify the final environmental impact report and adopt the resolution approving a general plan amendment, development permit, parcel map waiver, and protected tree permit, and adopt an ordinance approving a zone change at both parcels. Staff has included findings and draft conditions of approval in the resolutions, and the recommended findings and suggested conditions of approval are incorporated into the attached resolution and ordinance. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kendall. Commissioners, before we go to questions, I just want to say that between the applicant team and the 19 speakers we probably have at least an hour of comments, so I'm not going to limit the number, but try to ask some questions, but limit those to some extent, and that way we can get to the rest of the community and then obviously get back to us. So with that, I will open up to questions of staff. Commissioner Ferris.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kendall, for the very good presentation, comprehensive. I do have some questions regarding the case. I will start out with my standard, given that we have a general plan amendment in front of us. I asked for my standard, does this require voter approval measures? So I'll just ask a few questions. Regarding Measure W, are there any parcels in which there are currently designated parks, golf course, or open space where we're changing the designation?
No.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the city urban restriction boundary, are we expanding that beyond its current boundaries at all?
No.
All right, thank you. So let's go to Measure E. Is there, I do note that there are comments regarding compliance with Measure E. Is there, for the respect to residential, is there any changes that would cumulatively provide for net increase in the maximum number of units, residential capacity over the baseline?
No.
And the reason for that is for the two properties we're looking at, one of them has a capacity of 9 units. That will go to 0. You go to the other one, it has 0. It will go to 9 units. And therefore, between the two, within the amendment itself, there is a net 0. So regardless of where the baseline is, there's no increase in that case. Is that right?
Exactly right.
Okay, thanks. Let's talk commercial. In this particular case, both there is a swap. One of them has no commercial acreage. It will have 4.74 acres of commercial usage acreage for that. The other one will turn to from institutional to residential. So between them, within the amendment, it increases the commercial acreage by 4.74 units. Is that correct? Within the amendment, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And then what is the current baseline and what's the rationale so that I, the commission, and the public can know that this amendment does not, in fact, increase above the baseline, the commercial acreage baseline?
Thank you, Commissioner Ferris. I'll jump into that one. So with the adoption of the 2045 general plan this last December, we went through some changes of our land use designations with multiple land uses changing into our mixed use land use designation. And as part of that change, there's roughly in approximately 250 acres that went from commercial to mixed use. So the 4.74 acres that are being proposed today above ground conditions would be covered by that approximately 250 acres or so of the commercial land uses that had been changed.
Okay, thank you. So just to be clear, that so those commercial in the previous general plan approval by the city, the staff's position and the council's direction was that the change of about 250 acres worth of commercial to mixed use, which does allow for commercial, but it's not being designated as commercial. If we were to have an amendment such as this one or subsequent one that would increase the acreage by 250 acres, it's the city's position we still would not exceed the baseline under Measure E.
250 minus this project, but
Correct.
yes.
Okay. I still disagree significantly about that interpretation, although I will say it's consistent with what the city said. Thank you for at least having that on the record. One additional question. We're talking about the oak tree removals. So there are 14 protected oak trees. 7 of those 14 are designated as being in good health and average or above average in appearance. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And based on what I'm seeing in page 38 of the staff report, it says, it's staff's position that the proposed 14 removals are necessary to allow reasonable use of the property. I am assuming that that is assuming the general plan amendment and zoning changes are made, then it would be needed to allow for reasonable use of the property. Is that a correct assumption or condition there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'm going to allow the other commissioners to have other questions. I do have some before we go to the applicant.
Definitely come back. Commissioner Lake?
None at this time.
I'll turn to my right. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Killahat?
So I just have a quick question about mitigation effects. So in light of the Edison easement and the Ventura County Fire Department requirements, could you describe the landscaping mitigation measures that will be done on the east, from the east side of the property?
So, okay, so you're asking specifically just about the landscaping requirement. There's no landscaping mitigation measures, but the landscaping requirements on the east property boundary. So the landscaping on the east property boundary is affected by the brush clearance requirement for wildfire. So there won't be any trees necessarily planted on that side of the property, but the retaining wall, the building is sunken down at that point, so the retaining walls would provide a good bit of shielding on that side of the property.
So basically, it's because of the brush clearance requirement that the trees can't be planted over there.
That's right, and the Edison easement itself, of course, you can't plant tall trees underneath power lines.
Okay, yeah, the Edison easement, okay, thank you.
And I'm happy to expand further on other ways, but other than landscaping, that the project is trying to be respectful of their neighbors.
Any other questions? Commissioner Kettlehead? Is
A
that it?
couple questions for the applicant,
Commissioner
but
McCain.
just one quick one for you. You had a rendering up in your presentation that was titled landscaping, and I was hoping to ask you, it showed the building next to the ridge, and I was wondering if that ridge was there on the rendering just to look pretty, or is that the approximate view that we will see of the ridge from where that rendering was focused?
This one? This picture?
It's not up yet. Oh,
Was it of the
yes,
view of?
that one.
That one, okay.
Yes.
Sorry, can you repeat your question one more time?
Okay, so you look at the building and you see this beautiful ridge, and it looks like it's tucked way under. Was that just for aesthetics, or is this generally how it will look?
This is generally how it will look. Yeah, the building is depressed, and so the existing grade is higher than what the finished grade will be. So the building will be depressed as to what you would see today.
And that's about the amount of ridge we will get to see.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's it for now.
I just have a few questions. The power lines that we mentioned, are those going to remain as is, or are we burying them? What is happening to those power lines?
They're remaining as is. They are higher voltage than is required to underground.
Okay. So that we can't do anything with them, they're staying as it is, and that's probably, is that the requirement of the utility?
Right.
You mentioned, and I'll pick up on what Commissioner Keller was saying, you mentioned you would highlight the things that are being done as part of the proposal to mitigate these issues. Could you please do that?
Sure, and Scott, please pick up if I leave anything out. So there's conditions of approval that require dimming the lights at a certain time. The operation of the facility is daytime only. There's no emergency services or anything like that, so the noise would be limited to just daytime, normal business hours as well. The rooms on that side of the property, or that side of the building, are exam rooms, right? So they're not going to have windows that would allow anybody to look. Not that you could see really beyond the property line anyways from the building, because again, it is depressed and surrounded by retaining walls, but there's no real chance of anybody looking out from the building onto the neighboring property as well.
And I'm assuming there's a limitation in terms of foliage because of fire dangers.
Fire and the power lines, of course.
And is there, I'm trying to remember back on the pictures, is there something that will take the water drainage away so that's not going to go into the creek?
Our standard stormwater regulations would kick into play, and we do have members of our Public Works team here that can talk about that in detail if you want to get into that conversation. But the way the stormwater regulations work is we capture a certain amount of water during our first flushes, if you will, of our storms, and it's to be retained on site for a period of 72 hours to slow the amount of water that goes off, to allow the other water that's already in our creeks and our riparian corridors and in our stormwater systems a chance to move along without being overwhelmed. So overall, this project would need to comply with those same regulations. And again, if we need to get more technical about that, we're happy to do so.
Maybe after we go through the other comments. So that's all I'm going to ask now. I don't see any other hands. So why don't we go to the applicant and their team, which I believe, I'm sorry? Oh, Commissioner Ferris, go ahead.
Thank you. I had some questions about what was in the EIR, so I'm wondering if I might be able to get some help on the evaluations. So EIR mentions in page 4.10-4 that a future neighborhood park, the closest future neighborhood park site, currently informally referred to as Rolling Oaks Neighborhood Park, consists of 2 vacant parcels, 5.5 acres total, located adjacent to and northeast of the Cancer Center site. Just for confirmation, I think I did ask this over the weekend, it was confirmed, but our updated general plan circulation element does not have a connection between Rolling Oaks Drive and Rimrock. And that was, from what I can remember in the research, a direction from council to make sure that that actually didn't happen for these sites. Is that correct?
I think Commissioner Ferris, that's correct. The adopted 2045 general plan no longer has the road extending eastward from Rolling Oaks into the county. It now ends at the city terminus, if you will, and Holland Drive is essentially where traffic is rerouted to.
Right. So because actually that road, had there been a connection, it would have gone through one of these parcels that was actually acquired by the Rec and Park District and as identified as the neighborhood park. Is that right?
In the old general plan?
In the old,
that's
in the old general plan, yes.
Correct.
Assuming it would have been extended, it would have gone through there. So that neighborhood park would likely end up, if the plans were ever done and they would have to go through and make changes to their own general plans and create the park, would serve both the Rimrock community as well as the Rolling Oaks community, correct?
correct. The road would. The current, I'm apprehensive to get too much into the park design.
Sure,
Because that's
sure.
not before us. But this project, as any other project, has frontage improvements and sidewalk improvements, which would allow individuals that are on the Cancer Center property or in the neighborhood or the medical office buildings, an opportunity to walk to the upper portion of the property that has been purchased by CRPD. What improvements would happen there to allow someone to access the park from there? That's yet to be designed, and it's not before us today.
So it could, pedestrian and potentially bike traffic could allow for, because we're not going to.
Potentially.
The road actually does terminate there, but.
Yeah.
But that, so the hope would be is the intent is the neighborhood park serves both the east and west side of where these parcels are, connecting that, right?
I think that is a fair statement in terms
Okay.
of intent.
So if this particular site is placed here with a commercial acreage, they would need to, pedestrians potentially from the Rolling Oaks side would need to traverse through a commercial campus to get to this prospective neighborhood park. Is that right?
Maybe not, because it's a sidewalk is essentially what's going to be constructed along the frontage of this center, so along Rolling Oaks. Exactly where that sidewalk is going to be placed, our Public Works team is going to work with our applicant team in the construction details. But frontage improvements are typical of development, so curb, sidewalk, and gutter, or curb, gutter, and sidewalk. And that's ultimately what would be on the front of this property in the public right-of-way connecting to the CRPD park to the east.
Maybe I could be more crisp with my language. I had mentioned that they would traverse through a campus, and effectively not. They would be on a public right-of-way, but on the north side of Rolling Oaks and on the south side immediately next to this, they would be walking through commercial properties to get to this. Is that right?
Sorry, are you, you're saying if they're coming from the county side?
No, I'm talking about those that are in the Rolling Oaks residential area. They would be traveling east on the northern part of the property. If this were commercial, it would be commercial to the south, commercial to the north in order to get to the neighborhood park. That's a correct understanding, right?
Sure, they wouldn't be required to travel within the properties themselves, right? There would be an improved sidewalk and pedestrian
Public
access.
right-of-way on a
Right,
sidewalk.
Right,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, completely fine.
Can we go to the applicant now?
No, can I ask
Oh,
one
okay.
last question?
Go ahead.
Before we go? Thank you. The alternative two did talk about in the evaluation potential alternatives to meeting the objectives of the project. And it was stated that alternative two would meet most of the project, would fall short of 1, 2, and 4. Can you give me a crisp understanding of exactly what it falls short on 1, 2, and 4? From 1, it looks to me the only thing that it would miss is the statement located adjacent to the existing Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital. Otherwise, it would meet the objective. Is that a fair reading?
Commissioner Ferris, I'm pulling up the objectives so I can go ahead and make sure that I'm
Yeah, thank you.
referencing them correctly. So objective 1, just for the record, for our fellow commissioners too, and members of the public who might not have the EIR right before them, I'm just going to read them very quickly if that would be of
be great.
help. So objective 1 was provide a state-of-the-art cancer center that consolidates various cancer services, cancer medical equipment, and patient service-related functions within a single comprehensive cancer treatment facility located adjacent to the existing Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital to allow for improved patient convenience, efficiency, and quality of care. So for that objective, it's the adjacency issue is really the one that's not being absolutely met. For number 2, objective 2 is redevelop an underutilized site with a modern and attractive cancer center building that is adjacent to other medical offices, surgical hospital, and near a key transportation corridor, thereby reducing trips and providing convenience for patients. For this one, the relationship that this particular facility has with the Tosh in particular is, again, what we're sort of pointing at here. That interplay really is important for the applicant's project, and they'll be able to speak more to that during their presentation. And then objective 4 is ensure the building is designed and massing are sensitively developed relative to the surrounding built environment and compatible with existing hillside conditions, including limiting the amount of grading and dirt export to the greatest extent possible while still meeting the critical need to consolidate multiple patient services into a single facility. And for this one, it's, again, that whole idea of consolidating all the services related to the Tosh. So there are elements of that interrelationship, if you will. And I'm going to ask if our city attorney, Patrick Ehard, wants to provide any additional comments on those items.
Thank you, Mr. Kolwitz. The other aspects of it, if you review the alternatives, is that the analysis compared the environmental impacts from the various alternatives. Obviously, no project is obviously the environmentally superior option. But then you look at, if you want to compare having the site built, the cancer center built at the Los Robles facility on Jans Road, you look at some of the resources and those impacts, and if you read the alternatives, there are some that are lesser and there are some that are greater. So for example, cultural resources and tribal cultural resources were considered greater for the site to build the cancer center at Los Robles Jans Road. Paleontology resources were considered to be a greater magnitude of an environmental impact for alternate to the Jans market to the Jans Road. Noise was considered greater, and I think those were it. In addition to the comments that Mr. Kolwitz made regarding meeting the objectives of it. I think it's also important to note that when you look at alternatives, that's exactly what they are, but it's, primary is what is the applicant's project, and then, again, this is just environmental analysis. There's no set rule as to how many alternatives you have to go through, but in this case, they certainly went through a number of them to ensure that it was adequately addressed.
Okay, thank you. The reason I ask for these is that the whole point of the analysis is to understand the alternatives that are intended to meet the objectives of the project, which these are the stated objectives. So I just wanted to have an answer. Number one, I understand the difference of understanding if the objective is to be located next to the hospital, then obviously anything not next to the hospital doesn't quite fall short of the objective. For number four, I think there was another statement of where maybe the amount of export of dirt at the other site was more, and so for that reason that fell short on number four. Number two, I was having a little harder time with, only because it states, again, redevelop an underutilized site with a modern and attractive cancer center building that is adjacent to other medical offices, surgical hospital, and near a key transportation corridor, thereby reducing trips and providing convenience to patients. I'm kind of trying to understand why the Los Robles Hospital is not considered a surgical hospital?
The relation, as, I'm going to partially
The
refer
applicant
to
might
the applicant.
be able to.
But as we look at the relationship of the staff that are at Tosh and this particular facility, there's an interrelationship between those facilities. And as patients are cared for in the cancer center that might need overnight care, there's a purposeful intent by the applicant team not to put them in the hospital with a large amount of different medical issues that could be going on there. It's basically trying to keep it as in a close-knit environment with fewer infectious issues, if you will, for our populations that might be immunocompromised with their cancer treatments.
Okay. And then with respect to being near a key transportation corridor, is Lynn and Jan's
I believe
not
we
considered a key
identified that both of the objectives are effectively the same in terms of transportation. But with alternatives, we take them as a whole. There's we're trying to meet the objectives to the maximum extent practicable with it, and considering the objectives and considering the impacts essentially that go along with it. So transportation very well may be similar for both projects.
The reason I ask is that it was stated in the EIR that it would not be located adjacent to the existing Tosh or near a key transportation corridor. And Lynn and Jan's are identified on our general plan as primary arterials. So I just question how that is not meeting the objective. So that's fine. That's for all of us to ensure an understanding of the evaluation here and the alternatives we have before us. So those are the questions I have before the applicant and the public speak.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner Ferris, for cutting off. I just know that there's a lot of people that want to speak, and I'm hoping to get them home in a decent time. So with that, we'll introduce the applicant team. You have 15 minutes. Introduce whoever you want, and it's your 15 minutes.
And then fellow members, sorry. Is it okay? Okay. My name is Natalie Musi. I'm the CEO of Los Robles Health System and a resident of Thousand Oaks. Los Robles has proudly served the Conejo Valley for the past 55 years. Alongside HCA Healthcare, we are a committed member of the Thousand Oaks community and strive to be the community's most trusted resource for health and a regional destination for care. In addition, we are dedicated to being a good neighbor to all of our surrounding neighborhoods that border our locations and to the wonderful residents of our cities in which our facilities reside. When Los Robles first opened in 1968, we served a population of about 40,000 individuals. Since then, we have grown alongside the communities we serve and now provide care to over 400,000 community members. Throughout the past 55 years, we have been devoted to providing the latest advancements in healthcare, integrated the latest technology, and created state-of-the-art programs and facilities to ensure that our community has the best-in-class healthcare. We keep our patients at the forefront of everything that we do, and that is why we are here today, to speak about our thoughtfully designed comprehensive cancer center, a center that will partner with our world-class physicians, those that are independent, and our physicians that are part of the UCLA and City of Hope that specialize in cancer care. When the 400 Rolling Oaks property became available to purchase, we instantly saw the synergy and symbiotic relationship with Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital as an opportunity to bring our decades-long vision of a comprehensive cancer center. A center where cancer patients will have the convenience of a surgical hospital right next door, where many of them have procedures, biopsies, and other services. A cancer diagnosis is challenging for both the patient and their loved ones. Our cancer center strives to have a patient and family-centric focus that is dedicated to a multidisciplinary team approach so that both our patients and their families can be confident in the quality of their care plan. A dedicated cancer center will provide an environment where physicians and staff can collaborate to come up with the best possible care plan for their patients. Having a centralized location will also open avenues for our care team to host patient and family discussions with the whole care team, as opposed to traditional appointments that are fragmented, so that doctor's appointments, radiation treatment, chemo infusions are all in one place. In addition, the Rolling Oaks campus will give patients peace of mind that they will receive treatment at a location that is not tied to an emergency room and a more controlled environment for those immunocompromised patients. Los Robles will continue to have an oncology unit at our main campus for patients that need that additional care that only a full-service tertiary hospital can provide. As our community's healthcare partner, we see the struggles of our cancer patients have. There are both good and bad days, and it's unpredictable to know how that individual will wake up feeling during a treatment day. With nausea, fatigue, and other symptoms, cancer patients currently have to go from office to office throughout the city, adjacent cities, and even travel to LA and beyond. You can imagine how challenging that can be for a patient when you aren't feeling your best. With a full-service comprehensive cancer center, cancer patients will be able to go to one central location and have access to the multitude of services they need. The facility will operate between the hours of 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. It is an appointment-only healthcare business with a sufficient large supply of parking that will be carefully managed to ensure we do not impact the surrounding neighborhood. Our doctors will be at both Tosh and the Comprehensive Cancer Center, so it is expected they will park in one place and walk back and forth, thereby reducing the overall parking demands. Our dedicated cancer center will provide the newest state-of-the-art medical equipment that consolidates patient services, including radiation oncology, medical oncology, surgical oncology, radiology, and patient-centered services, including navigation, genetic counseling, and emotional counseling, and support services that include but are not limited to wig fittings, prosthetics, an oncology library of resources, and a healing garden. We have conducted extensive community outreach both with our neighbors and with the greater community. We know our immediate neighbors have concerns that we believe will be dispelled once we are operational. In our talks with the community at large, the support has been overwhelming for the Comprehensive Cancer Center, acknowledging it is long overdue need in the Conejo Valley. Please know we have carefully reviewed all of the staff's recommendations and accept the conditions of approval. I'm a proud resident of Thousand Oaks and a member of the Los Robles team that is bringing the Cancer Center to Thousand Oaks. We know you will be too. We ask for your support and favorable recommendation to the City Council for this project. Thank you. Turn it over.
If you have others from your team, just please state your name and city of residence.
Hello, Stephen Lopez. I'm a partner at HKS Architects and principal architect for the Comprehensive Cancer Center. And I'll just briefly note, summarize that the building is designed consistent with the municipal code, the level of detail developed in the mission revival manner. And that further, the design team worked with with members of the planning department and at the staff's request added additional detail into the building and that would be increasing the variety and the color palette of the plaster, adding additional roof eave elements, adding additional roof hip elements, adding arches at certain windows, adding architectural detail, and removing exterior downspouts. And the balance of the team is happy to answer questions as well.
Thank you. Is there any other official presentation from the applicant or just questions? I will then open it up to commissioner questions. I'll start on this side. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Kettelhut.
This would be for Mr. Lopez. Could you describe the lighting both in the parking lot as well as what will be on the building? Because I know in speaking to some of the residents, there were concerns about what washing over the rimrock area. If you could describe that, that'd be very helpful.
I can describe it in general, but not in great detail. That type of lighting is specified by an electrical engineer. But I can say that lighting, parking lot lighting, what are called light standards, so light poles, those light fixtures are designed to limit the spillover of light. And they typically comply with dark sky requirements and limit the spillover of light off the property.
Excuse me, and what about on the building?
I don't know offhand.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes. What services are now currently at the main hospital that will be moved to this office building if it's built?
So there's not currently any services at the main hospital that will be moved to this building. It's consolidating services that are in different medical office buildings around the city that will be moved. And some will just be new to the city, to the building.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, wait, come back up.
Sorry.
I kind of wanted to highlight two things. I know the staff kind of talked about them, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of give your view of that. Why at this location versus the one on Jan's?
Yeah, and I kind of alluded to that. It's aligned now. We currently do a lot of surgical oncology at Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital, so it meets that need to be kind of symbiotic and close to the Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital campus. It also is, Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital is more controlled. There's not an ER there, so it's a more controlled environment for those immunocompromised patients.
And then the second issue was, again, indicated in the staff was mitigation factors with regard to the neighbors. You've identified some of them. The lighting I was curious about in terms of the lowering the lighting at some point.
Yeah, I think, so this is a, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So our intention is not to have, to mitigate the lighting as much as possible with the neighborhoods. And we can work with the design team to make sure that's part of it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the applicant for the moment? Okay, I think at that point, thank you. We will start going through the public comment. I did note there was one person that submitted both a written card and a public speaker card, and Ms. Gore is going to tell me something. All right, so we'll start with the public speaker cards first. And by the way, we have over 16, so it'll be 2 minutes. I'll try to be respectful. Please do the same to me and try not to go much beyond the 2 minutes, because every second you speak is a second somebody else isn't getting a chance to speak timely. First, let's go with Karen Wilburn, and second, Rick Lemo. And again, please state your name and city of residence, or if you're in the unincorporated part of the county.
Good evening. I'm Karen Wilburn from Newberry Park and a founder of Conejo Valley Advocates for Sensible Planning. I'm here to oppose the application of HCA. The city has just spent several years revising our general plan, and two of the key objectives were to support more housing while preserving our residential neighborhoods. Now HCA is proposing to place a cancer center in a residential zone to consolidate already provided existing services. To achieve this, they're proposing a swap, rezoning a parking lot at the hospital for residential. This is clearly a thinly veiled attempt to circumvent the no net loss portion of Senate Bill 330 and goes against everything the city promised us during the general plan update. We all know no residential is going to be built on that parking lot, but residential land on Rolling Oaks will be lost. I also want to ask for transparency in tonight's meeting. Following the November 2021 meeting on the Crusoe project, it was uncovered that some of the speakers and letter writers expressing support were also employees or business associates of Caruso. Many of the current council members may remember that when then Chair David Newman became aware of this, he instituted a new practice of asking all speakers to announce any ties they may have. A similar issue arose at the December 5th council meeting during the general plan approval. A significant number of comment cards were completed by relatives of a property owner who had a large stake in the general plan. These relatives falsely claimed they were residents of Thousand Oaks when they in fact lived in various parts of Los Angeles and Beverly Hills. This information and documentation was provided to the council in December. This type of tomfoolery cannot be allowed to continue. It's an affront to the hardworking residents who are trying to participate in our city government. Therefore, I ask that you continue Mr. Newman's practice and ask anyone to divulge a relationship with the applicant. And please say no to this proposal. This can be built on their parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Lemo, followed by Brian Radisavich.
Good evening, Chair Lanson and Commissioners. My name is Rick Lemo. I'm a 38-year resident of Newbury Park. And I'd like you to think about something tonight. Two different things. Tonight you have a power that a planning commission seldom gets. The power to save lives. And while you're thinking about that, I'd like you also to think, if you know or have a family member who has cancer, who had cancer, or who survived cancer, because you have the power to expand upon that as well tonight. As you might be able to tell, I'm speaking in favor of the proposal that HCA and Los Robles have put before you. It's an honor to speak to you tonight because I do have a tie to that hospital, none of which are financial. I have one child, 5 grandchildren, all born there, and they're all very healthy, thank God. I have a wife who went through stage 2 cancer there. And one of the things we sort of had to do was to get a second opinion. We had to drive to Santa Monica. And of course, you drive to Santa Monica and they tell you about how wonderful their treatment centers are and how deep they go. But my wife had it in her head that she wanted to go to Los Robles. So she told Dr. Juliana, who was one of the world's best surgeons, I want to stay at Los Robles. And he kind of scoffed and said, really? Why? Who is your doctor? And she said, Dr. David Chi. And he had a big smile on his face. His ego was completely gone. And he said, possibly the best student I've ever had. Go get your care at Los Robles. And that was over 15 years ago. This is a chance to let a business make an investment in our city that will actually reduce time on the freeway, will actually keep people close to home. And I hope you can recognize that and keep that as your approval tonight.
Thank you. Brian, followed by Julie Ladd. And then Tim McGrath.
Chair, Commission, thank you for having us today. We really appreciate it. All 5 of our kids were born at Los Robles Hospital. They're all right here.
Speaking to the mic, if you could.
All 5 of our kids were born at Los Robles Hospital right here. Great care. I worked there for nearly a decade myself, handling all cancer patients myself. I worked at UCLA, handling all cancer patients. I've probably handled some of your cases myself with my own hands. Cancer is near and dear to my heart. Today, I'm with a biotech company where we're at the cutting edge of bringing novel therapy to patients. We're going to be using your own T cells to cure your cancer. It's huge. And I'm all for support of diagnostics, laboratory care, and cancer care. We are on the east side. We're on 243 Rimrock Road. Sorry, Brian Radisavich, 243 Rimrock Road. We're on the east side. The wall that you're talking about, that's what we're going to look at. That's what we're going to look at. Would you want to look at that? You wouldn't want to look at that.
Just make sure to speak in the mic so we can hear it.
So we're very grateful for the community. We love our neighbors. They're fantastic. That's why we moved there. And they're like family to us. We don't want to move. We will move if the center's built there. We're not going to live there. There's no way I'm going to stare at it every single day. Besides the traffic concerns and everything else that everybody else is talking about. Today, we absolutely oppose this building. We support our community. We do support building in general. And we're not anti-building. And we love Thousand Oaks. We really do. It doesn't fit our community. We talked about watershed. We have concerns there coming from the top side. We do see deer, bobcats, mountain lions. I have film of that. Natalie herself said that she would build a tree line to protect visibility. Now we're hearing with the fire zone that there's not going to be a tree line. We're hearing this potential 15 feet taken of our spot, of our property.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Julia Ladd, followed by Tim McGrath, then Robert Marcarelli.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners and staff. I'm Julia Ladd, a longstanding resident of our community, and I'm honored to voice my support for the proposed Comprehensive Cancer Center. As a community advocate on the Los Robles Board of Trustees, our paramount commitment is to deliver quality care in the most accessible setting possible. To that end, providing a sanctuary close to home where individuals can access treatment, recovery, and vital support in one location in our community spares them the burden of traveling to distant locales for care they rightfully deserve. The proposed center, adjacent to the existing surgical hospital, will create a convenient hub for patients needing services at both locations. Its design harmoniously blends with the neighborhood, yet caters to the needs of patients and family. Operating 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, for scheduled treatments only, there will be no emergency facilities, sirens, or late-night weekend traffic. It will serve as a tranquil haven for individuals navigating the challenges of cancer treatment, offering a cohesive space for our oncologists and medical teams to serve them. By uniting in an agreement on this project, we can provide patients and families with the assurance of receiving high-quality health care at another level in a sanctuary close to home. I urge you to vote in favor and support for the establishment of this cancer center in the proposed location and offer hope to those who need it most. Thank you.
Thank you. And just remember when you come up, just give your name and your city of residence, or if you're in the unincorporated part of the county. Tim McGrath, followed by Robert Marcarelli, and then Dave Gansler.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Tim McGrath. I live at 141 Sundown Road, and my home is roughly 1,000 feet away from the proposed 400 East Rolling Oaks, which is currently zoned rural exclusive. I've been a member of the community since 1987, and I'm a widower. My wife, Tori, of nearly 30 years, passed away just over 3 years ago from cancer, so I'm no stranger to the needs for the cancer in this community. But if HCA asked me, I would put a cancer center on the existing property on Jans Road, because even though she was immunocompromised, we still had to go to the hospital, and having it in one local center makes sense to me. This request for zoning change by HCA appears on its face to me to be a simple, disingenuous land grab. By my estimates, HCA will earn over $4 million by you allowing the zoning change on the land alone. HCA is ranked 67 on the Fortune 500 list and is a Tennessee-based corporation, which has a history of controversies from an ethical perspective. From 1993 to 2003, a federal probe by the FBI and the IRS resulted in over $2 billion in criminal fines for systematically overcharging the U.S. government in the largest healthcare fraud ever in the U.S. history. Locally, in 1995, HCA purchased the Westlake Hospital in Westlake Village, where both of my children were born. It subsequently transferred most critical hospital services to the Los Robles Hospital in Thousand Oaks and tore down the Westlake Hospital after it became dilapidated due to lack of maintenance, and sold the property 10 years ago in 2014 for $7.3 million. If there was a decades-long plan for this, why didn't they build it there, is what I ask myself. In 2005, as a result of lawsuits due to insider trading, HCA paid out $20 million to shareholders without admitting any wrongdoing. During the pandemic in 2020, 2 HCA nurses died of coronavirus after outcry by their staff due to the lack of PPE. Recently, in December 2023, the Attorney General of North Carolina sued HCA for violating terms of an agreement that allowed HCA to purchase Mission Health. Please say no to this unwanted corporate takeover of residential land in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Marcarelli, Dave Gansler, followed by Greg Sincock.
I wrote for 3 minutes, so we'll see what happens. I'll rush it up. I'm Rob Marcarelli, and I live on 177 Rimrock. Forgive me in advance for using entertainment jargon, but real estate development and entertainment process are very similar, and I've worked in both fields. There's key questions when you're doing what I do, and the key question is this fiction or nonfiction? The other question is it something the public needs, which you'd ask, like housing, which we know we need. The proposal is like Groundhog's Day, but with a bigger groundhog footprint. Just a reminder, in 2016, a similar proposal went down in flames by the city council, and that was before we had the pressure of housing needs. So now a different producer developer, HCA Nashville, is proposing a building that's bigger than the White House, you know, the one in Washington, D.C. Just imagine that thing sitting there. Plus, it has about 200 more parking spaces than the Washington, D.C. White House has. So, and that's one of the differences that they're proposing, and it doesn't make sense because it's so large for that area. That's what was said by the two councilmen that are of the 5 that are still on. They said, no, it doesn't fit. Now, what's the need? That's number 2. HCA representatives have purported in various meetings, and they've even said it tonight, that they have to drive to Santa Monica. And this is maybe the only comprehensive cancer center. But you know what? That's just not true. And it's a slap in the face to the other 9 comprehensive cancer centers that are 12 minutes or 10 minutes from where I'm standing right here. And they're comprehensive. Go look at, do your homework, and you'll see that that's not the case. So it's a fake trade. Let me tell you about that. Let me just finish with that because I think we'll need it.
No, I'm sorry, sir. Your time is up. I'm sorry.
Okay, the trade is not a trade because no one will develop the 2 acres for housing.
Thank you.
It's a fake trade.
Dave Gensler, followed by Greg Sincock, and then Lynn Burdick.
My name is Dave Ganser from Thousand Oaks. I've lived here for 38 years in the neighborhood adjacent to the proposed development. I do not support HCA's healthcare development plan as currently proposed due to its encroachment of commercial development into a residential neighborhood and its disingenuous residential zoning swap. HCA's project plan estimates a proposed increase of over 2,100 daily vehicle trips in our neighborhood. This added level of commercial traffic in a residential area will increase public safety risk and aggravate traffic and parking issues in our neighborhood. The proposed development requires the residential zoning swap that staff reviewed earlier. HCA has no plans to develop the Jans Road property for residential purposes, effectively freezing this vital residential zoning resource. Further, the Jans Road property will likely never be developed for residential purposes. In addition, HCA has indicated that if the Jans Road property is rezoned to residential, HCA intends to continue to use the property in its current institutional use as a parking lot. To this Thousand Oaks resident, it is disingenuous to the Thousand Oaks community to allow a zoning swap that effectively freezes residential development, yet allows the owner to continue to use the property for institutional purposes. If the property is zoned residential, then HCA should be required to treat the property as residential. I support HCA's effort to develop a cancer center, but only if it's located on HCA's Jans Road property, already zoned for such use and conveniently located on the existing hospital campus, allowing the Rolling Oaks property to be developed for residential use as it should be.
Thank you. Greg Sincock, followed by Lynn Burdick, and then Sidney Gran. Sorry, I'm assuming Greg Sincock is not here. Sorry, I was doing a little thing of making sure we had the cards that come to the other commissioners. Lynn Burdick, followed by Sidney Gran, and then Lisa DeLallo.
Can I put something up here? Is it okay?
She's trying to use the overhead projector. Is that something she can do?
Is it up? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we see it.
My name is Honorable Planning Commission members, my name is Lynn Burdick, and I've lived on Los Padres Drive for 27 years. My father died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, my grandmother of pancreatic cancer, and my best friend of stomach cancer. I've been affected by cancer, and many of my neighbors have a personal connection to cancer as well. But tonight we are in opposition to the residential zone change to commercial, not a cancer center, especially when the EIR has identified an appropriate alternative site with less impact on the HCA Medical Campus. Having lived in this neighborhood for many years, our neighbors know each other, help each other, protect each other. We've stuck together as we face the borderline mass shooting and the major wildfire evacuations. 400 Rolling Oaks Drive is within the boundaries of our neighborhood and has been residentially zoned since the 70s. The general plan, one major strategy is to preserve and enhance single-family and multi-family neighborhood as low-scaled, family-friendly place to live. Al Adam and David Newman, as well as other previous planning commissioners and city council members, have stated as to the 2016 prior proposal to rezone the property from residential to commercial public lands that it's inconsistent with the surrounding neighborhood. The city voted to deny the zoning change. Al Adam stated in February 2024 in a public speech that our neighborhoods will be untouched. In 1999-2000, the city council and developer of the medical offices north of Rolling Oaks told us not to worry, that the development would not intrude into our residential neighborhood. Now in 2024, HCA is proposing a similar request, a residential low-density zone change to high-density commercial office within a residential neighborhood. HCA has not demonstrated a need for the zone changes. The proposal is to consolidate existing in the community services, especially when there's an existing property zoned appropriately that meets HCA's objectives.
You have about 15 seconds.
Please, I'm voting that we vote no for this proposal.
Thank you. Sydney Grand, followed by Lisa DeLallo, and then Andrew Pletcher.
Hello, good evening. My name is Sydney Gran, and I am a 22-year resident of Thousand Oaks. I stand before you today as a member of this community and supporter for a project that holds significant personal meaning to me, the proposed Comprehensive Cancer Center. The gravity of this endeavor extends beyond the architectural blueprints and zoning changes. It resonates deeply with the collective well-being of our community. I come before you not just as an advocate, but for someone who was personally affected by the devastating effects of cancer within my own family. I lost my grandmother to pancreatic cancer. I have witnessed the challenges, the struggles, and the emotional toll it takes on individuals and their loved ones. A comprehensive cancer center is not just a medical building. It is a beacon of hope, a sanctuary for healing, and a symbol of our community's resilience. I understand the concerns and considerations, and yet I firmly believe that the benefits of the Cancer Center far outweigh the challenges. I urge you to look beyond the plans and statistics and recognize the human aspect of this proposal. This cancer center is not just a structure, it is a haven for healing, a source of strength, and an asset to our community's health and well-being. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Lisa DeLallo, followed by Andrew Pletcher, and then Laszlo Kupon. And by the way, if I messed up your names, I'm sorry. I'm not good at names. Okay.
This one, right? Honorable Planning Commission members, my name is Lisa DeLallo. I've been a resident of the Conejo Valley since 1964 and a homeowner in the Rolling Oaks neighborhood for 27 years. The proposed cancer center, as stated in the EIR, is to consolidate up to 7 of Los Robles' existing facilities, which are dispersed throughout the city. Like many of us, I have lost friends and family to cancer, including my brother Steve to pancreatic cancer, and my husband Richie after, a 4.5-year battle with head and neck cancer. I've had to navigate my loved ones through a wide array of cancer treatments, and I disagree that a single comprehensive cancer center adjacent to the Thousand Oaks outpatient surgical hospital is needed to improve a patient's quality of care, as stated in the EIR. For my husband and I, his caregiver, we never gave any thought to where, I'm shaking, his treatments were being administered. Whether it was a mile this way or a mile that way, the building where his treatments were located was the furthest thing from our minds. Los Robles also states that having various treatment locations for a cancer patient causes significant inconvenience for cancer patients and their families, resulting in stress and suboptimal quality of care. We did not find this to be true. Caring for a loved one with cancer is very stressful, but there was no burden or stress in using existing facilities at various locations in the Thousand Oaks area. Cancer patients are all different, and all their needs and treatments are not going to reside in one building. The oncologist is the captain of the ship, and he steers his patients to their treatments, which may be at completely different facilities than those of Los Robles Hospital and Medical Center. From my point of view, as someone who has experienced terminal cancer of a loved one firsthand, I feel the need for another cancer center and the benefits it could bring to our community have not been proven. Please remember, it is the quality of treatment and care that is important and not the building it is in. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Pletcher, Laszlo Kupon, and then Christine Scully.
Good evening, Chair Lanson and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Andrew Pletcher. I'm a resident of Newbury Park and a former Planning Commissioner from 2016 to 2019. I wanted to come tonight and speak in favor of the project before you and recommend that you make your recommendation to the City Council, both in my individual capacity and that as a board member for the Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce. You've heard here tonight all the reasons why we need to pass and recommend such a comprehensive cancer center in our area, but I wanted to speak on it from an economic development perspective. Healthcare in our Ventura County represents 89% of all jobs in the broader private education and healthcare sector. Hospitals and care facilities account for 28% of all employment within that our economy. Los Robles Regional Medical Center remains one of, if not the largest, of our county's healthcare providers, and despite a declining population over time for Ventura County, the age demographic mandates such an expansion of workers in this particular sector. You've heard from the applicant that under SB 330, they will do a zone change. They will put residential housing and residential units prospectively off of Jans Road. What I would recommend is that you actually, take a look at what the law says. The law actually says they just have to make that zoning swap. They don't need to propose a project. They don't need to have a project before you tonight, and that's not what is before you tonight. What I would love to see and what my hope is that the applicant then turns those 9 units into workforce housing for nurses or travel housing for nurses, apartments, other ways that they then can offer and expand services within their Los Robles facility in Thousand Oaks. So again, in conclusion, I just want to offer my recommendation that you move this project forward to City Council and to see its full passage. Thank you.
Thank you. Laszlo Kupon, followed by Christine Scully, and then Andy Logan. And I hope I'm getting close on some of these names. I have a feeling I'm not.
No, you were right on with mine.
Okay.
So Laszlo Kupon, I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks and specifically the Rolling Oaks neighborhood. I am a father of 4 with my oldest being 8. And while we love our neighborhood, there's no park there. And so when we saw that the CRPD bought 2 lots that just happened to be adjacent to the site, we're pretty darn excited. I looked at the EIR, I read it, I read the staff report, and Commissioner Ferris asked some good questions about this park. And what I didn't see anywhere is what's the impact of this project on that future park? How is it going to be accessed, right? Is there going to be a walkway that's built in? I didn't see it in the plot plan. Are my kids going to be expected to walk through an active parking lot? Are they going to be asked to walk over a retaining wall, go through the dirt? If I have my mom's coming to the park with them, she has limited mobility, how is she going to access the park? Ultimately, these are the type of questions that should be addressed in an EIR and that should be addressed by the Planning Commission, and they haven't. This is a wonderful neighborhood. It's a great city. But this is one big lacking part of our area, and it needs to be addressed. This is an open lot that gives access and gives us the potential to have a great park, and we shouldn't let it go away for this development. So absent further mitigations, I am not in favor of the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine Scole, Andy Logan, and then Wes Myers. Go to the one to the other side there. There you go.
Hi, my name is Christine Scholey, and I thank you, City of Thousand Oaks. I might get a little emotional. I'm 4 generations of Ventura County. My mother, Stella, had Stella's Restaurant for over 32 years. You know what? We work. And, you know, it's not just my generation, it's a generation before me. I've lived in Los Angeles. I've lived in New York City. I've lived in other areas. But I circled back and I came home. I live on Los Padres Drive. And the idea of having 2,100 more cars per day, you know, they come up Los Padres and they can't see my house because it's pitched. So if I'm backing out, you know, and they're coming, it's vulnerable. And I have all my neighbors. We're such a tight-knit neighborhood. And I'm not opposed to a cancer center. But I'm asking you, please don't rezone our residential area to commercial. We already have an overload of cars because of the apartment building for the affordable housing, because they have 248 apartments. They probably have an average of 4 people per apartment. It's okay. You know why? Because that's how they can afford it. But you want to bring in this 58 square foot building? It's not appropriate for us. Can we please remain who we are? We're not the valley. So I just ask you, please really consider it. I know it's big bucks, but they can go over to Los Robles. My mother died, and we never once complained that we had to drive from here to there.
Thank you.
And I thank you for serving our community.
Andy Logan, followed by Wes Myers, followed by Brian McQueenie. Again, give your name and city of residence.
Andy Logan, Thousand Oaks. My daughters and I, born in Los Robles. I live in the neighborhood up above the proposed site. And it's interesting to note that since we live there, we love the neighborhood. Laszlo and I share the same street. Between Rancho and Lynn, there are almost 0 non-medical amenities or services or businesses in that whole south of the 101 zone. So there's a golf course and a gas station, which for families is not exactly where we're heading on a Sunday afternoon, right? So when I heard about the park and your questions, Commissioner Ferris, I was heartened that it's still in the planning, and saddened that when we saw this parcel opening and might be considered for some use, we thought, oh, great, maybe it'll be something amazing for us. But it's another medical facility, which we're just feeling like every time there's some lot coming up for availability in our neighborhood, it's just going to be chomped away by the medical field that's there. So again, as families move into these neighborhoods, it's important to have some kind of amenities. I'm encouraged by the park. I really don't want to see walking strollers and young kids down that blind curve on Holland where cars go really fast, so I hope there's some easement and right-of-way that's considered. And I think it might be, if this horse has left the barn and this project is going to be approved, maybe the new tenants of that site will make a sizable contribution to this park to make sure it's the most amazing one in the city. So I would encourage that, but I would love to see a no vote first. Thank you.
Thank you. Wes Myers, followed by Brian McQueenie, then Susan Goldbranson.
This one? Thank you, Commission. Wes Myers, unincorporated county. Thank you for your time. It's a thankless job sometimes. You got to balance economic interests and social interests, and sometimes they conflict. I just wanted to urge, I've sent in comments, but I'd like to let it be known that I think there's some holes in this one. The Pretenders had a line, it was, nothing's perfect, not even a perfect stranger. And this EIR, the draft EIR and the final EIR had no substantive changes It had no corrections or anything. It had explanations, but nothing as far as the assumptions or the facts in it were deemed to be inaccurate, even after all the public comment. And then I come here today and I'm hearing HCA's treats 400,000 of our nearest neighbors. I didn't know we had that many. And then it is for overnight oncology. And then, oh wait, it's only lights will only be on 8 to 5. I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, and then on top of that, we have the land swap. We have the 5-acre for 2-acre thing. But it doesn't seem, it seems like we're making a round peg fit in a square hole. I think there could be something to be done. I looked at the plans. The top floor is all open for leasing. The bottom floor is built out for the Comprehensive Cancer Center with access directly to the Tosh. But the second floor is fully for medical offices that anyone could be there. I mean, I could get my teeth cleaned and a vasectomy in the same place. You know, it's nothing says that that's going to be necessarily needed for cancer treatment. I mean, it could be a cash cow, but that's where the economics and the social requirement happen. I think we could do that if we could. I think there's a compromise. I'm not sure what it is, but we might want to look at giving a little haircut on that top story, maintaining residential acreage so that we're not being subject to requirements by the state of, you got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian McQueenie, followed by Susan Gilbranson, and then Barbara Bollinger.
Good evening. My name is Brian McQueenie. I live in the city of Thousand Oaks. Justine mentioned in her staff report the pre-application back in October. And I was up in the chairs and I pulled out my phone and I looked out my first email to HCA about this. And it was in March, 6 months before their pre-application was submitted to the city. And my outreach to them was that, you know, neighbors are going to be concerned with what you are going to propose. Here's the contact for the president of our HOA. Let's have a conversation. HCA never reached out to us. They reached out to the city. They reached out to the chamber. They reached out to Rick Caruso's right hand, but not to the neighbors, not to the people who are most affected by what's going on there. HCA knew what they were buying. They knew the city had rejected a very similar, a smaller proposal 6 years before. These are things that HCA worked diligently to ignore in its proposal to the city and in its communications. I want to thank you guys for having a chair here. 2 weeks before this meeting, HCA had a little show for neighbors to come in and see. We were told about it 2 days before. 2 or 3 years in development, they can't get a postcard out on time to tell the neighbors about what's going on there. You look at some of the renderings. As Wes just said, the entire second floor is vacant. You could cut off the top floor of this building and not affect HCA's ability to serve this community. You could make this a 25-foot building instead of a 44-foot building and not affect HCA's ability. Look at their own plans, their own schematic. So I would urge you to oppose it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Susan McElbronson, followed by Barbara Bollinger, and then Danielle Borgia.
My name is Susan Gilbranson. I live in Thousand Oaks, and I'm a resident of the impacted area. I oppose the rezoning swap of the property on Rolling Oaks Drive to commercial and the parking lot parcel at the intersection of Jans and Linden Road being rezoned as residential that would allow HCA's unnecessary project to proceed. The Rolling Oaks parcel was previously the subject of development for an assisted living facility by Oakmont several years ago and found to be incompatible with the neighborhood. HCA's proposed facility and its negative impacts on an established residential neighborhood are much worse than the Oakmont. It's Oakmont on steroids. The quality of life impacts of over 2,100 daily vehicle trips per the EIR in this established residential neighborhood should not be rationalized for HCA's pursuit of profits. HCA already owns a suitable, appropriately zoned parcel for the project at the Los Robles Hospital Complex. What becomes clear in the EIR document are recent statements from HCA reps that the parcel at the intersection of Jans and Lynn Roads was rejected because that site is not adjacent to the TO Surgical Hospital on Rolling Oaks. The process of evaluating alternatives was thus prejudice to HCA's agenda. I'd also like to point out that a recent forecast from the Cal Lutheran University Center for Economic Research, CERF, found that Ventura County's housing supply will continue to be constricted. CERF's Director of Economics, Diane Hamilton, was recently quoted saying, and quote, aggressive policy of greenlighting infill development, especially multifamily housing along transportation corridors, is needed, unquote. The Rolling Oaks, Los Padres residentially zoned parcel fits that ideal versus rezoning the Jans Road site that will, by statements made by HCF reps, not be developed for housing and continue to be used as a parking lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Barbara Bollinger, followed by Danielle Borgia, and then Chuck Cohen. Again, please state your name and city of residence.
My name is Barbara Ballinger. I live at 336 Los Padres Drive, the closest house to the 400 Rolling Oaks site in question, and I'm against the rezoning. HCA wants to cheat the no net loss state law to build a cancer center. They plan to commit this crime by falsely offering a smaller area they already own, a parking lot on the Los Robles Hospital campus. It's already zoned commercial as a swap for the larger residential areas of Rolling Oaks. The EIR and the HCA's own representatives have been honest enough to say that they have no plans to ever build housing there to sell the house or to sell to housing developers. And why would they? As long as they have it, they can continue to use it as a parking lot and have the other cancer center too. Did the general plan say we need another cancer center? No. It says we need more housing. That's what we're supposed to be. That's what's supposed to be our primary goal, especially affordable housing. This is a clear case of changing a residential area to commercial. The state is investigating this dishonest skirting of the no net loss law, and there will be a net loss of housing zoning. Don't approve this dishonest swap. The borderline property might be an alternative if they have to have something next to near Tosh. And there's already conference rooms in Los Robles, so they don't need a separate floor for a conference room. There's probably conference rooms in Tosh and those medical centers as well. And cancer patients, I believe, would rather have a home than another cancer center. I was a cancer patient myself, and I know I didn't mind going to other offices.
Thank you.
I just wanted to get the best.
Thank you. Danielle Borgia, followed by Chuck Cohen, and then Greg Korn.
Good evening, Commissioner, Chair Lansing, and Planning Commissioners. My name is Danielle Borgia. I'm President and CEO of the Greater Conejo Valley Chamber of Commerce, and I am an unincorporated resident here in Thousand Oaks. I am here in support from our business community of the Comprehensive Cancer Center. This project is really a significant investment of time, talent, and resources by Los Robles Health System to provide individuals and families fighting cancer the ability to focus on what matters most, their health. When people are diagnosed with cancer, patients and their families and friends, they feel helpless. This state-of-the-art treatment center is something that the city can actually do to support local residents and their families fighting cancer in our community. There are similar uses adjacent to this site. I have driven it myself. I am very familiar with this property. My kid's pediatrician is right around the corner, and this clearly is not about 9 units. Our chamber has actively advocated for housing in our community. Housing is extremely important, but we're talking about 9 units. In addition to the services inside the building, having the healing garden adjacent and the park is such a beautiful and thoughtful addition to this project. When my mom was at the Simi Valley Hospital in very grave condition, they have a beautiful garden there, and it was such a haven for our family. And I know that the families that are going through cancer are going to appreciate this asset next to this facility. They also mentioned the economic impacts. We have high-wage jobs that we need in this community for people to actually be able to afford housing. We are the most unaffordable county in the state of California, and we need more high-wage jobs in order to meet our housing demand and for people to be able to afford to live in our community. This project has the opportunity to do just that. On behalf of our board, the Chamber encourages you to recommend approval to the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Chuck Cohen, followed by Greg Korn, and then our last one is Mike Nichols.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you. I'm Chuck Cohen, speaking as a resident of this wonderful town we call home. Proposals for change are always provocative. I'm here in support of this vital facility and its benign location. What isn't benign is the benefit of such a facility to our city populace. Some of you know of my experience with cancer recently, up close, and the experience and caring service provided by tonight's applicant. Having read some of the criticisms about this application, may I assert that it is understandable but irrelevant that HCA is a large health provider nationally. What is relevant is its service to and investment in our total community. I say that with my memory of casting a positive vote as a member of the Thousand Oaks City Council for the Los Robles Regional Medical Center in 1969, I should say. The stir against placing that hospital abutting a residential neighborhood at that time, where I lived 2 blocks away, was far beyond the number of opponents that you're dealing with this evening. I'm confident in saying that a significantly larger and more intense facility did not change the living quality of the neighborhood that I lived in at that time, nor did it reduce property values. This is time proven. It is also fair to say that the substantial medical facilities across Rolling Oaks Drive establishes this application location as compatible. Finally, an unneeded reminder to you who serve our city so well, you are not being cruel or adverse, just responsible when you vote as a representative of all 125,000 residents of this valley on a project of monumental value to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Korn, followed by Mike Nichols, followed by Diane McKay. That's a very long walk, isn't it? Sorry about that.
Hello, thank you, everybody. My name is Greg Korn. I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks. I have 3 kids, live in actually Foxmore Hills, so not exactly nearby, but I do work very close to the site at 351 Rolling Oaks Drive. I'm an architect by profession, and I do appreciate the design of the building. I think it's a very nice building, nice site. A lot of thought went into the project, but I don't support this at all. Bottom line, I just think there's way too much medical office in the Conejo Valley. The site, not symbolically by accident, used to be a daycare center. It was for the children. And I want to put that focus on the rest of what I'm going to say, because I do have great compassion, as just pretty much everyone here. We have a close family member who had cancer or died of cancer, but I don't think that that is really the relevant issue here right now. I think the site, it would be much better served something directly supporting the community, meaning the residential community, And in addition, like I said earlier, I think that this is just another opportunity to add medical office to the community. We're not thinking about the future. We're thinking about the present, about profit now, about revenue now. And to the chamber, who I also support, let's think about revenue 30 years from now, investing in our kids and a future for them. So that's all I have to say now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Nichols, followed by Diane McKay.
Good evening. My name's Mike Nichols, 196 Colt Lane. I wasn't going to speak tonight because I submitted a list of questions prior to this, but in the opening statement, something struck me, and I wanted to make sure someone could ask this question before the night's over or before you vote. It's been said over and over that there's no development planned at the Jan's location. Is that correct? That there's no development?
Just go ahead and make your statements.
Okay.
They'll respond
So
later.
if there's no development and the zoning will be changed to low residential, how can there be a parking lot with over 260 spaces? So someone needs to ask the question, if it's changed to residential, doesn't HCA have to get rid of the parking spots and turn it back into what is qualified parking for that type of zoning? And if that's the fact, then do they lose something at their surgery center by losing 260 spaces? And I just want to know if anyone ever thought of that or asked that question, because when it's turned into residential, it should qualify with all the residential components, including the parking that is required for that zoning. So if someone could ask that question, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane McKay, and then we actually had one on Zoom, which is Karen Martin. So Ms. McKay first.
Hi, good evening, Chair Lanson, Commissioners, City staff. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Diane McKay. I have lived in the Conejo Valley, both in unincorporated and in the city of Thousand Oaks most of my life, as you know, and my business is in the city of Thousand Oaks. It's an honor and pleasure to also be the chair of the chamber for this year. And the chamber, I'm here to speak in support of the Comprehensive Cancer Center. I think we're actually really lucky to have this opportunity, not just the high-paying jobs, but the actual modern care that we're going to be able to have that for a disease that just keeps coming back. As a former community college trustee, I can tell you we can't train nurses fast enough. You can't, per patient, you can't get appointments for weeks or months out in advance. So we don't have too much medical care here in the Thousand Oaks. Our aging population is going to demand more and more. I live in Lynn Ranch, which is kind of close to the Jan's and Lynn site that many of you have said it should go there. I think we have a lot of hospital there. We have a lot of cars that go by us there. I think it's really easy to just say it should come on us, but I actually met Natalie Musey when the hospital did their original expansion, and our neighborhood felt very similar to the unincorporated area here. But nevertheless, it has worked out very well. They stuck to all of their promises when they did that comprehensive expansion of Los Robles. So I trust them. I trust the professionals. If they say that cancer should be under one roof, I'm not an oncologist. I trust them if they know their business. So please, I urge you to vote yes on this. And since I'm the only thing between you and making a decision, I'll end my comments now.
Thank you. And then last, we had one that was on Zoom, which is Karen Martin. I don't know if she's there.
I believe so, yes.
Ms. Martin, are you there?
Hello.
Go ahead.
I am here.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Karen Martin, 986 Oaks, because we're losing Oaks, right? Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. While a cancer center in an aging bedroom community sounds financially lucrative, the projected impact on the community in this report is fictional. Shouldn't we consider the fact HCA lost a lawsuit for not meeting an acceptable level of patient care? Do your job. Please provide a legitimate EIR. I've lived catty-corner to the hospital for 30 years. They are not a good neighbor. I listened to them protest because of staffing and scheduling, and my anesthesiologist actually was complaining about it right before my procedure. That gives you faith. The Sound study in 2005 showed noise levels well over the acceptable level of 65 decibels, 73.4 decibel. The recent noise study measured it at 67.4. How can that be? Traffic has not improved in the last 20 years on Lynn Road. Then there's the enlargement of the helipad. Okay, old general plan, we were promised an evaluation of the heliport when it got upgrades. Instead, we got a diminutive traffic study of Jan's, but not Lynn, and it didn't even include a sea-weighted study, which was required by the FAA. Consider the fact choppers routinely hover over that lot lower than 200 feet on the western flight path. How much noise will those homes be subjected to, day and night? That's supposed to be a parking structure. What happened with that? Why did they change the deed? Why did they make a new deed on that before the heliport enlargement? Do your job. There's been questionable planning happening in the city for several decades. Because of the projects you continue to improve without mitigation, Blue Rock, Loopy's, Rubber Duck, the lakes, and don't forget Shangri-La, you cannot give a cost of living raise to our police department, AKA you're defunding it. As our city grows, we have fewer officers, resulting in chaotic traffic patterns and more crime. It's cost.
Thank you. So that's it for the public comment. I do have the written-in comments. There were 19 against, actually it was 18 because one was duplicative of a speaker card, and then 4 in favor. I think at this point we're going to take a 10-minute break and then come back and follow up probably with the staff. So let's take a 10-minute break. All right, so I'd like to get the meeting back on track here. Please have a seat. Silence your phones. And this is usually the time we would then go back to staff for comments, if you are ready. And I'll make it official. We'll go back to staff for comments.
Okay, Chair Lanson, thank you for giving the microphone back to us. This is going to be a little bit of a team approach, but I'm going to go ahead and summarize some of the comments that we heard and then jump on into responses. So we heard comments about some of the physical items, the lighting of the property, the size of the development. We heard some comments regarding adjacency issues, whether that's access to the park or traffic sort of issues. We heard comments about the EIR, the response to comments and those sort of analysis items, and some comments about the prior project, the Oakmont project, once upon a time. So with that, let me go ahead and start jumping into responses to those, and my colleagues are going to jump in here as need be. So in no super organized fashion, but trying to knock those off one at a time. Early on, there were some questions about lighting and on the building itself. How does that impact the neighborhood? There is a condition, it's condition 123 in the resolution that specifically talks about lighting. It specifically prohibits wall pack lighting, which is the lighting that just shoots out lighting in all directions. And then it goes on to say that the lighting not only does it need to be decorative, but it needs to be shielded downwards. And our photometric analysis does look for no spillover on the property. So it's all intended to be self-contained on the property. There were some comments about the size of the structure relative to other property or other developments in comparison to some developments that aren't even in the city, but we wanted to point out on page 25 of the staff report, we have a chart that gives a breakdown of this property and this development relative to other developments that are in the immediate vicinity. This project, I'm going to just use round numbers. Let's say it's approximately 60,000 square feet. The Tosh and the medical office building, which really has the appearance of being one building, is about 90,000 square feet. The other medical office buildings in the area are anywhere between 30 to 40,000 square feet each. And the heights are comparable. So staff, our response to the comparison of the structures is they're comparable to one another. We talked about, or some comments came up comparing this project to the prior Oakmont project. And staff's comment about that is these are, in our estimate, different projects. They have different sizes, different layouts, different operational characteristics from one another. And staff has analyzed this project to our current regulations, and we've done our environmental review based on today's standards. So we are looking at these through the lens of this project only. We don't see that it is a project that has some of the same issues that the Oakmont project previously did. For instance, this project, it's limited to 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. It's not a 24-hour facility. This project has enough parking to meet all the regs to have all the parking on site. There are other things that we can highlight, but I'll stop there. At this point, if Planning Commission has other questions about that, we can talk about those items. The park project, as I collect some of my thoughts, let me go ahead and ask Justine to hop in here for a quick second.
Sure, just want to give some assurances that CRPD did review this project several times throughout the review process. They ensured that their interests were maintained, of course. There is no design of the project, nothing has been put forward, and we can't talk about anything that we don't know about, but as conditions of approval, they have been included in the resolution, which ensure access is maintained and provided. And so CRPD, again, has reviewed all of these materials and the plans and have met with the applicant several times throughout the process to make sure that they are maintaining anything that they may need in the future.
Thank you, Justine. And with that, I'm going to ask some of our public works staff to come down to the lectern, specifically regarding access to the park. If we could have some public works comments about that, as well as there were some comments about traffic increases, and if we could have comments about those as well.
Thank you, Scott. Nader Hidari, I'm the city engineer. And just to follow up on the traffic that was mentioned to going through the neighborhood, it is not anticipated that any appreciable traffic from the project site will go through the neighborhoods, because doing so would be a much longer route, 150% longer in length. And I'm not sure really any drivers have that inclination to drive a much more circuitous and longer route to get to and from their appointments. Rolling Oaks itself goes directly down to the Moore Park Road into the freeway, and it is not a heavily congested roadway that would offer the desire for people to try to find alternative routes. Also, this project, as was mentioned, operates at normal business hours and would not be generating traffic in the evenings and the weekends and so forth. So that was another element to be mentioned. And just for the pedestrian access, yes, as Justine just indicated, there will be a future sidewalk, a standard sidewalk going along the frontage of the property to that future park site in conjunction with the development of that future park. So there will not be, residents will not be anticipated to walk through, navigate through parking lots and through cars and so forth. It will just be a normal sidewalk to the future park site. So I think that captured everything.
Thank you, Nader. A couple other questions and comments regarding the idea of the swap of the properties. So with that one, Justine, her presentation included the math and the rationale for the swap and how that works per state law and per the math in terms of the number of units. Staff, we wanted to build on that just a little bit. In terms of the number of residential units that we're talking about, none of these properties were included in the housing elements in terms of our required affordable numbers. So we're not entering into any sort of RHNA discussion one way or another. But as we look at the development of a property, general plans and zoning regulations essentially set up possibilities. Essentially, here is a menu of options for things that can be constructed on a particular piece of property. And the analysis of that happens when those applications come through for the actual physical development. So in this case, for the Jans and Lynn property, that parking lot, yes, it is a parking lot today. We do not know exactly what residential development will be coming in the future, as we don't know with a lot of our properties that are slated for development or redevelopment throughout the entire city. But when those future applications come in, we will review it for consistency with the regulations in place at that point in time. Until such time that the application would come forward, the parking lot does get to, at the main campus, the Los Robos main campus, gets to continue as a parking lot. Any parking that would be displaced for the hospital would need to be replaced so it would be consistent with the required parking. And for the parking that's on the campus today, the Los Robles Hospital does currently actually exceed their technically required parking. They also have a history of providing shuttle services through the parking lots to try to better distribute employee parking and other things to make their parking lots better. And they also have a history of using off-site parking when they've had past construction, for instance. They used off-site locations, and those sort of things, if needed, would be other options that have worked in the past and we can look in the future as we look at potential redevelopment options out there. Patrick, let me pause there for a quick second in terms of land swap items, if you have any other items to comment on that with it.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Kolwitz. So let's talk about a couple things that Mr. Kolwitz just said, just so we again clarify some of the points. One of them is his comment regarding the housing element, and it's important to note that we heard a lot of comments tonight about the need for housing and the need for affordable housing. When we did the housing element and we did all that analysis, this parcel was not part of that analysis, so all our arena numbers, all the things that we were concerned about, and we pressed forward for our housing element and our general plan, that's still in that analysis, right? This parcel was separate from it. But to that point, Mr. Kolwitz mentioned the parking spaces, and I thought of the analogy of when we had the specific plan 20, which is the Thousand Oaks Boulevard, right? And we have a specific plan that goes through an EIR, it goes through a number of changes and proposed changes for the future, right? And when you look at those changes, there are many uses that are currently on the boulevard that are not going to be permitted under the SB 20. So once that parcel decided, or the owner wants to change that, they need to comply with SB 20. Similarly, with the parking lot, there was a question about the parking lot. That is a permitted use at this point, and if there's once the project goes forward, then that would be something that would be analyzed as to whether or not, how much parking would be needed and the type of parking and where it would go, et cetera. So for that, it is important. Going back to SB 330, I want to back up just a little bit because it's important to understand the history of what we've done here and what happened with SB 330. So specifically with SB 330, it's Government Code Section 66300. And as we've expressed, as Justina expressed, the general rule is that you cannot take away residential that was there on a parcel without doing a no net loss exchange if that parcel was residential from January 1 of 2018, right? So in this case, that would qualify. And so when you look at the analysis, there are several exceptions. Government Code Section 66300 is very dense, and it has a number of exceptions. And one of these exceptions, the one that we are key on, is in subsection I1, and that has to do with this no net loss. And it's important to note that it's a no net loss in residential capacity. It doesn't talk about building it. It doesn't talk about timing. And that's important because in this particular case, with HCA and the applicant, the benefit that they have is they own both parcels. Most of the time, I think for what we're going to see in the future here is we're going to see where you have one owner for parcel A and one owner for parcel B, and they want to do this swap and they want to do an exchange. And so they say, okay, I wanted to put residential on property. It might increase the value, et cetera, et cetera. But what's important is there is nowhere in the section that says, oh, by the way, owner B of parcel B, once you get that change, you must immediately concurrently comply and start building something in concurrent timing with the commercial property or the industrial property that was swapped out, right? There's nothing in that. And so what I heard, and I appreciate the comments, but it's almost like they're reading an intent into the statute, and the plain wording of that statute, it simply isn't there. What's important is that there is no loss of residential capacity, and that is what we've done here. We did a very thorough analysis on it, and we meet these requirements under the statute, and we are confident that we are, again, complying with the letter of the law as written. And again, to try to read into additional thoughts of, oh, it must be in timing, there must be intent at a certain time frame, it's simply not there. And it can't be, because when we think about all the different entitlements that you as a commission have done for various developers, right? Sometimes you say, the Chair Lanson would say, do you plan to build it, right? And we all know from experience there's many factors that come into play, such as the economy, such as cost of product and cost to build, et cetera, that go into play. So some of these things, even though they're entitled, they're not built necessarily at the time because of the situation at hand. And so to try to place that on a burden on HCA in this application would not be fair, and it's not a fair reading of SB 330 and specifically Government Code Section 66300. And I'll turn it back to staff because I think we also have an analysis on CEQA.
Thank you, Mr. Scheer. So the last two items that I'm going to comment on, one is the EIR response to comments, and then the idea of alternative two. There were some comments about that one generally. So there was a comment that the EIR and the final EIR has been published, and there really weren't any substantive changes to the environmental impact report through the final EIR, and that's true. We did receive a number of comments that came through that made comment on the project, but not the comments that we received. Nothing said that the EIR itself, the analysis, was inaccurate. So the purpose of an EIR is to disclose information relative to environmental impacts. And that's different than the merits of the project. The EIR itself, we did identify that there were some impacts that occur with it, and we identified a series of mitigation measures as well that need to deal with those. So we conducted the CEQA analysis in that regards. But in terms of the final EIR, as we responded to response to comments, we did not find that there was any comments that we had received that said that the analysis in the EIR was flawed relative to CEQA categories that we need to consider. And then as we transition from there to alternative two, and that really has to do with the idea of this project on this site relative to Tosh as part of that conversation. And then in particular, alternative two is let's build the cancer center on the Los Robles main campus. There was a comment that essentially said, can someone please clarify what the relationship of this project is relative to Tosh? I'm hearing that it's only business hours, regular business hours, but I'm also hearing overnight accommodations. So the cancer center itself is a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 operation. Anyone that would need to have overnight care would not be staying at the cancer center, but the Tosh, the Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital, directly to the north of the proposed cancer center site, they do have facilities there that can have overnight accommodations for patients. So that was that comment, just to clarify that aspect. But alternative two is all about constructing a cancer center not at the Rolling Oak site, but at the Jan site. And that project, we did conduct our analysis, and I'm going to turn this one over to Carrie Wood-Dudak, who is on our CEQA team, to explain those environmental impacts as we compare the relative projects.
Hi, Carrie Fernandez with Dudak, and thanks, Scott. So just really briefly, we did do the analysis of on alternative two, which would develop, because of the site constraints on that site, and it is a smaller site, it would require a different configuration, and that configuration would in and of itself have potential impacts such as the subsurface parking structure, which would include more grading, which has the potential for groundwater because it is a relatively shallow groundwater site. And then by having to go, then would be additional, construction-related air emissions, noise for the, more intense construction. It would also have a greater height in order to accommodate all the necessary square footage to get into the site. And then also because of the subsurface going deeper, there's potential additional impacts to cultural resource and paleontological resources as you would hit greater depths. And then I guess the other thing too is for biological resources on the proposed project, there's a number of trees that will be retained, protected trees, and on this site, there's not enough space to retain the trees, so they would be removed. So that's an additional biological resources impact, which, it doesn't meet all the objectives, it does meet some, but those are the things that also have greater impacts.
And that's where my list of items runs out. I'm just going to double check with other staff to see if anyone else had other notes that we did not touch upon. And I'm seeing a head shaking at this point in time. So with that, Chair Lanson, unless there's other questions from the commission, that ends staff's comments, but we do have the opportunity for rebuttal, as I understand it, for the applicant to provide any more comments and clarification for project objectives and those type of things.
I was going to go to commissioners first with regard to questions they may have, just to get clarification of anything. Any questions for staff? I'm seeing no on this side. Any questions, Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you. Actually, if I could follow up just a little bit on the impact on the swap, and I think Mr. Harrod described it well. I just want to make sure that I'm parodying it back in my own words. Effectively, by taking the Jan's property and designating it with residential and zoning it appropriately, if the owner of the property were to ever want to improve it in any manner, those are the regulations with which they would have to be consistent with for any approvals. Is that the right way to think about it?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, with any property, again, it's what do I have, what's allowed on this parcel based upon the zoning, and then what do I want to do based upon those requirements, the standards, et cetera.
Okay. The one thing I did want to basically understand, and of course we don't know the future or anything, and we're dealing with sort of a general plan and zoning change swap to accommodate both effectively like a Measure E and not having to go to the voters, but also SB 30 and not have it go to no net loss. So is it possible that there is some future general plan amendment that comes to the city's attention that takes this capacity on Jan's and wants to swap it elsewhere? Meaning that if the swap is there and the owner wants to improve it, they would have to comply with the residential zoning and designation on it. But could it be used for a future swap down the road, meaning that it may not? Kind of trying to get an understanding of all the evidence we've had for it. That is a possibility, correct?
I'm going to say that I'm not sure I can speculate on that. I think one of the concerns I have is this is a relatively new statute, right? And it's very, very dense. And so there's no really case law on it that's really that extensive. So I think we're still seeing the courts analyze some of these factors. And we I haven't seen one on this particular issue for sure. But I think trying to anticipate things for the future for any of these properties, right? There's things that you would have to do and make decisions and cost and all those factors.
Okay, thank you. One last question I had, and I guess comes back to the EAR. I think that just in the analysis of it, in the land use and planning section, some of the questions that are evaluated, one of them asks, would the project physically divide an established community? And it says no impact in that case. I know we've talked about a future park and there's no designation for the parcels themselves, and so is it technically true that this project with this commercial zoning would not technically divide an established neighborhood or community because those aren't established? We have no idea if they will be there in the future. So it's the analysis at the time, given current conditions.
Commissioner Ferris, yes, it is the analysis at the time. And that particular section of CEQA, when we talk about dividing an established community, I'm going to go with a bigger project to use as an example because I think that helps drive the point. It's the 101 freeway coming through and going through an existing residential neighborhood. That's the sort of thing where you're physically separating and dividing because you no longer could use surface streets. There is now physically the freeway without the underpasses and the overpasses that would divide it. That's the sort of level of impact we would be talking
Totally
about.
makes sense. Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Lake, any questions? With that, I will go to the applicant for rebuttal.
Rand Pastor and Nelson, co-counsel on behalf of the hospital. Want to address just a couple of points and appreciate the staff and city attorney's thorough responses. But I also want to make some comments about the SB 330 rezone because it was so central to many of the public comments here tonight. And some of the language was concerning to hear that this is disingenuous, this is a sham, this is a crime. SB 330 in no way ties this body or your city council's hands and prevents you from making zoning changes for public benefit projects. And we submit to you today that this is absolutely that. This is a public benefit project. As you've heard from the city attorney and staff, SB 330 does say that if rezonings are put into play, that a corresponding rezone should occur to ensure there is no net loss of capacity. But it's very important to focus, given the commentary tonight, about what the law does not say and what the law does not require. The law does not require that the rezoning site, in this case Jan's Road, be vacant or have uses that will terminate either today, tomorrow, in a certain prescribed period of time. The law absolutely does not say that when you in your discretionary review decide to rezone a property for, say, a public benefit project, that you have to find a site that is exactly the same size, exactly the same configuration, in the same neighborhood, a certain distance away. None of those details live in SB 330 or any other state law. And the reason for that is basic common sense. The legislature recognized when adopting SB 330 that to put those impositions on a city would create an impossible scenario, an insurmountable constraint that would deprive you as a city of virtually all of your land use authority. So while the state has come down and passed many laws that override certain local purviews, it is not said in SB 330 or any other statute that you can't take a look at a project on a property and make a decision about the zoning based on the fact that that particular project is a public benefit project. Much has been discussed tonight about the EIR alternatives, and those alternatives are an important part of the disclosure aspect of any EIR and any CEQA document. But I want to focus you on the project and the outcomes of the analysis of the project itself. Usually we look at adopting alternatives when the project EIR discloses significant unmitigatable impacts. Impacts that are fatal, that can't be addressed by mitigation. That is not what is before you tonight. What is before you is an EIR that has identified that all of the impacts in the myriad of environmental resource areas that need to be analyzed, from biological resources to traffic, to air quality, to noise, to aesthetics, to hydrology, utilities, they can all be mitigated to a level of less than significance. And I know you've looked at that EIR. There is an extensive battery of mitigation measures and protections that will ensure this project will do its responsible duty in terms of being an appropriate fit and a project that will not unduly burden the neighborhood. So yes, alternatives are there for disclosure, but we are not looking at a scenario where we have to find an alternative because this is a defective project that can't address its own impacts. Absolutely the opposite, and the substantial evidence in the record before you fully bears that out. Traffic, understandably, as it always is, was brought up tonight, 2,100 car trips. What wasn't addressed, at least I didn't hear it, is the fact that there was a traffic study done as part of this process. We don't analyze congestion-related impacts as a CEQA impact per se anymore since the adoption of another state bill, SB 743, several years ago, which requires cities to now look at vehicle miles traveled to evaluate traffic, a different metric. Nevertheless, a traffic study based on congestion was undertaken, and the trips that were calculated for this project were dispersed through the study area, and at all 7 intersections that were evaluated, it was determined that the traffic generated by this project would not degrade a single intersection in terms of its level of service, in terms of its volume to capacity and level of service. And that is important. Your city has a special regulation embedded in its general plan where you strive that no intersection be degraded to a level of C or less. None of the intersections would be affected adversely in that way as a result of this project. So we believe this environmental impact report and all of the mitigations address the issues under CEQA. SB 330 has been fully addressed by the rezoning that has occurred here. It has been thoughtfully undertaken.
Thank you.
I apologize. And we encourage you to support the project on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you. One second. Is there any questions for the applicant, commissioners? No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything further from staff that they want to discuss before I close the public hearing? It's not seeing any. I will go ahead and close the public hearing at this point and invite commissioners for comments or a motion. Commissioner Lake?
I've been awfully quiet this evening, so maybe this is apropos. And I have actually been quiet this evening because I wanted to hear from all of you. A fantastic turnout, and I appreciate you all being here. There's a lot more people in this room than we would normally see, so it's good to see your faces and participating in the public process. I'm wrestling with this quite a bit. I hear you. I hear your concerns. Nobody wants to see something where there wasn't anything for quite some time, especially when you have numbers as large as 2,000 staring you in the face for daily trips. But I want to kind of climb on top of my, my traffic engineering pedestal, if my fellow commissioners will allow me. I want everyone to think of the traffic study as a worst-case analysis, and without having the traffic consultant, because we've already told them they can't talk anymore, without them having to climb up on the, or climb up to the podium there, that it is worst case. And these trip generation numbers are based on surveys of facilities all across the United States. So looking at these projects and looking at these numbers specifically for this project, it might not even be a good fit. Medical office might not even be a good fit for an oncology type of facility, but we have no way of knowing how many oncology facilities are embedded in that trip generation rate. It's an average of every single medical office facility you could possibly imagine. So I want you to think of that as, yes, there could be 2,000 trips either on Holland or Rolling Oaks. Chances are probably not. As we have right now, the existing traffic volumes at Rolling Oaks, and we all know that Moore Park Road at the freeway can be kind of a mess because it's a tight diamond interchange and there's not a lot of space for storage. But right now in Rolling Oaks, we have about 3,000 cars per day. That's well below what the design of that roadway could handle. And even with this project, adding 1,000 cars, if you can expect that there's going to be 1,000 cars heading toward the freeway at Moore Park, 1,000 heading toward Rancho, either way, depending on which direction you're going, it's certainly more than what you're going to be seeing, but it's also not beyond what the roadway can handle. So I want everybody to keep that in mind, especially considering the fact that we have I'm trying to remember what staff mentioned earlier about the amount of medical office space. I want to say it's over 200,000 square feet, which, give or take. At 36 trips per 1,000 square foot, you should be looking at about 8,000 vehicles per day. We're not seeing that. So certainly think of this traffic study as a worst-case analysis. I can't guarantee you anything, but chances are we're probably not going to see those kinds of trips, especially for this kind of facility. I do want to delve in a little bit about the synergies that we were talking about earlier, and there is something to be said for what's known as internal capture. When you have like facilities that are adjacent to each other, such as a shopping center, nobody's going to the shopping center at the corner of Vaughn's, Jan's and Moore Park. That's not two different trips if you stop at the Starbucks while you go into Vaughn's. That's one single trip. You're not adding two trips onto the roadway. So there is a synergistic effect to having facilities that are like or alike to each other. They will use those facilities and not go to those two separate places. They're not putting another car on the road to get to there. So there is some synergy there, notwithstanding the fact that people are going to disparate facilities across town. Your navigation center may be somewhere else, and your treatment for your infusions for oncology may be somewhere else. Now you're going to one-stop shop, and I hate to say it like that, but this is in essence a one-stop shop. And for somebody who is undergoing cancer treatment, irrespective of going to the doctor of their choosing, if they're going to HCA for their treatment, this provides intangible benefits that I don't have to guess where I'm going. I don't have to guess that I'm going to Westlake or I'm going to Newberry Park. I'm going to this facility. And I think there is some benefit to that. As far as being located near a regional facility, and I know this is something that we spoke about with the general plan and the goal, or excuse me, the EIR with the goals, being located closer to 101 with respect to two interchanges on either side makes it so that those trip lengths are a lot less. And even the VMT analysis, VMT being vehicle miles traveled, indicates that this facility will create trips that are shorter than what we see in the background in the city of Thousand Oaks. We expect that there's going to be a trip length of 22 miles. This will have a VMT of 21 miles. because it's closer to that facility. There's less distance to get from that regional facility to here than there would be to go to Jans and Lynn. That's further away from 23 or 101. So we're taking cars out of the center, and I apologize for putting them in your neighborhood, unfortunately, but we're taking them out. That is a net benefit to the entire city. So, I mean, again, the intangibles there of just having that expectation and knowing where you're going, I think is to a benefit for people who are scared and who are undergoing these treatments and having been extremely close to people. I lost my mother last year, and she was driving to City of Hope. She lived in Los Angeles. She was driving to City of Hope because that's the cancer location of her choosing. But again, that's a one-stop shop. All of her appointments were at City of Hope. She wasn't driving to UCLA and Westwood. I mean, again, I'm sorry, I'm throwing in a lot of anecdotes here, but it all has a tendency to make sense. My final words would be I would strongly encourage Los Robles HCA to consider workforce or affordable housing on the project side. I mean, again, there is no project before us, but of all the people who would expect the sirens, although they turn off the siren when they hit Moore Park, but all the people who would expect sirens and helicopter noises, chances are nurses and doctors would be the ones to expect that and maybe not complain so much, but I would strongly encourage that. But for all of these reasons, I am in support of the project, so I will go ahead and make the motion that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution based on the findings and subject to the conditions therein, recommending that City Council adopt a resolution to certify the final environmental impact report associated with 2022-70775-EIR, State Clearinghouse number 2023040287, in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, and approve General Plan Amendment 2022-70587-LU, Development Permit 2022-70732-DP, Parcel Map Waiver 2022-70736-PMW, and Protected Tree Permit 2022-70735-PTP, and adopt an ordinance approving 2022-70733-Z.
Almost as good as Ms. Gore, almost. Thank you, Commissioner Lake. Other commissioner comments? Commissioner McMahon.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Link. I thought he brought up a lot of really good factual and logical things to think about. I'm more at this point of an emotional level. I think there's been a lot of talk about that property at Jans is never going to be developed as housing. And I'm a parent, and I learned as a parent, you never say never. And I can think about the hospital's new residency program, and I wonder how these young doctors can afford to live in our expensive town. I think, honestly, that HCA is going to find that they need to provide housing for these young doctors, or they may not have as many apply. I don't know. It's just the way I think. But I think that when we say it's never going to be residential housing, I don't think that's in the cards. I think we're going to see that change, and never say never. And another emotional thing is I'm in the demographic where I have a lot of friends and family who are going through cancer right now, treatments, and I have friends and family who have in the past gone through treatments, and the stories of driving 2.5 hours to City of Hope, or an hour and a half, 2 hours to UCLA, or further to USC, when they're just feeling lousy, and it takes so much out of them to drive so far. And I see that as we are in an aging society, and I think that our demographics, we need something here in town for the whole community, and so I will support the motion.
Commissioner Ferris?
Thank you, Chair. I think before us tonight, we've got HCA's brought forward a plan to be able to provide a cancer center within our community, and next to the Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital makes sense. It's right next to a variety of medical services in that neighborhood. Keeping the neighborhood residential as it has been for decades, and to be able to see the potential of what the Park District has done to acquire 5 acres of property, make a neighborhood park that can connect the Rimrock and Rolling Oaks communities into one area. pedestrian and bike access to a place, that also makes sense. And so we're in a position to where we have to make a decision, and it's about the balance that we have in front of us about supporting a project and its decisions before us, or to look at the analysis that the environmental impact report has provided to us and see if there's a different alternative. This is definitely a well-planned project. A lot of work has gone into it. It has been thoughtful in its objectives. It would certainly serve the community in its placement. The question that I have, and it's the same question that came before the city in 2015 and 2016, is this the right place for this project? And personally, I'm not sure that I see that the dynamics have changed. In fact, they might have been exacerbated a little bit with this project relative to what Planning Commission and the council dealt with in 2016. I look at, from the residential perspective, we've taken 2 properties and we've swapped them to give no net loss, given state law that we have. To do that, the sites themselves are like puzzle pieces, but where we are actually placing them relative to the other general plan puzzle pieces, in my mind, don't fit. We're asking in a residential neighborhood to insert a commercial area that interjects into that. And we're asking then to find 2 acres surrounded by commercial for a pocket of residential at the corner. And to me, it just doesn't make planning sense to end up doing it. I understand the math works, and I actually don't deny that this is legally defensible. It is in fact something that can be done. But I just don't know if it's wise. And in looking at that, I go back to what the council entertained. Just so everybody's a history on this. The previous project, they talked about as Oakmont. It was an approval by the Planning Commission 3-2. It was appealed to the city council, and the council rejected or approved the appeal and denied the project 4-1. And at the time, the discussion came up. In fact, they actually referenced the potential for a cancer center in that hearing. But one of the things that I actually find to be still very relevant is then Councilmember Adam, but current Mayor Adam. And his statement was, it's an issue of location. Should it go here? Should it go in the place that we're looking at tonight? I look at the north side of Rolling Oaks Drive as the commercial side. There you have the Thousand Oaks Surgical Hospital. There you have all the medical buildings. And Rolling Oaks is kind of the dividing line. On the other side, the south side, that's the residential side, the rural side. And to insert this commercial building into that site, I'm just not convinced that it's compatible or consistent with the neighborhood, and certainly not with the zoning. In fact, we'd have to change the zoning to do it. It's exactly the same situation we're in. It's exactly the same thing I see with this decision. The project itself is inherently compatible with commercial designation and the zoning we're planning to apply, only if we believe changing the general plan, the zoning is the right thing to do. And I believe the environmental impact report is adequate. I would vote to certify it if we divided the motion up, to have a motion on certifying the EIR as adequate. But I would not agree to recommend this project at this time. So if we choose to divide the question, I'd be happy to vote for the certification, then otherwise vote against the recommendation. If not, I would just like the record to reflect that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kedahat?
Sure, I'll follow that. Just like everybody, I'm wrestling with this. I've been wrestling with this a lot. And, you know, we met with HCA. We met with one of the residents. I know so many of you on both sides, and so it's very hard. I work with one of the people who spoke against the project tonight, so it's hard. It's a very emotional thing to contend with. However, we are not tasked with emotions. If we were going to trade in emotions up here, I would talk about the fact that my mother died at Los Robles 6 months ago of a glioblastoma brain tumor. I mean, I too have been impacted severely by cancer in our family. But as an attorney, as two of us up here are attorneys, you have to look at whether or not, again, we're balancing interests here. And we have to look at what is best for the majority of the community. And I think it was, I've forgotten that lovely gentleman's name who spoke at the end there, where he talked about the fact that, you know, does it meet the requirements? What are you tasked with? Planning Commission, what are you tasked with? And what are we tasked with? We're tasked with finding the best and highest uses. Is it consistent with the 2045 general plan? Yes. Is it compatible with the surrounding uses? And I know the residents would say no. And you know, that's again what I'm wrestling with, but does it can it check that box? It does, it checks that box. Does it comply with the municipal code? It does. You know, the mitigation measures, and again, in meeting with the residents, I think that the biggest concerns were, you know, the wash of lights, looking at the big wall, you know, the potential that someone could look into their yard at some point. And I wanted to hear what staff said about that, and I wanted to hear what the applicant said about that. And I'm convinced that those are things that the applicant will make sure that they take care of. The mitigation, you know, they've indicated they want to take these mitigation measures, but we've also got it baked in with our resolutions. Even if they didn't want to do it, it's baked into the resolution. And so again, as an attorney, I look at that and I go, it's baked in, so I know they're going to do that. The park project, the fact that we will get another park out of this, and the two gentlemen, the lovely gentlemen who talked about the fact that they wanted access, they didn't want to have to walk through a parking lot. Well, that's already been determined that there's going to be access for those people. The traffic, where, you know, again, Rolling Oaks goes directly to this facility. People, it was indicated that there was a study, and that it would be 150% longer in length to go all the way around to Moore Park Road and travel down through the neighborhood. And then finally, the requirements of SB 330 have been met. You know, we can't deny that. We absolutely can't deny that. So again, going back to emotion versus what we're tasked with, we have to, and I guess there was one final piece that really strikes me that is a bit of an emotional piece. What the applicant is planning here is something that's bucolic. This is a bucolic piece of property now. It was when my kid was swimming there, it still is. But what is proposed is a bucolic property. It's not an emergency center. There will not be emergency vehicles going there. There's a healing garden. So what the applicant has, you know, striving to do is keeping some degree of that bucolic nature there. And so for that reason, I will support the motion.
Thank you. I think one thing that all of us can agree on is that this is an amazing public benefit concept. Every one of us has been affected by somebody that has cancer. Our population is 7 years older over the last decade. I think it's 44 is our average age of our citizen now. We're dealing with a lot of different issues, and I think this, again, putting aside where just the concept of a cancer center is absolutely a benefit for the entire community. Again, I know there was one or two people that tried to argue that, hey, I don't mind driving extra. You will if you have cancer, believe me. So again, there's a public benefit here. So let's put that aside, because I think that luckily is something we can all agree on. The concept then we get to is the process by which that's been taken. The comments tonight, in fact, the written comments, including, I think, from a lawyer that was representing some of the parties, tried to throw a lot of different elements of things at us. Even, in fact, one part, the attorney said we should look at the legislative authority of one of the statutes to interpret a good faith process or some other process. And again, that always leads me to go back to the original rules under which that I was appointed, and that is I am not a legislator. I'm here to enforce the rules, regulations, and codes. I'm not here to decide if I like it, if I dislike it. the end of the day, I'm here to make sure that those applications comply. And I find this one does. I don't see any basis for us to imply a good faith requirement or all the other things that people want. I get, believe me, I understand. But we're not a legislative body. We're not the city council. And at the end of the day, 8 years ago, Planning Commission approved that, subject to the city council overturning it on policy grounds. They can do that. They're the legislature. We're not. Our Planning Commission is required to enforce those rules and regulations. I don't see anything as part of the presentation that I've seen that indicates any violation of the rules or any discretion, to be honest with you, that we would have to not find in favor of this because it does comply with all of the different elements. I know that's tough. Believe me, there's a lot of people that are going to be very frustrated about that because they want to leave that area empty. But I'm going to tell you, it's not going to stay empty. This, again, 8 years ago, it was a difficult use of land. I get it. And this, obviously, people are not going to like. But keep in mind, something's going to be put here. It could end up being homes. It could end up being a drug rehab facility, which we have no ability to stop anymore under state law. It could end up being an Airbnb. It could be a frat house. It could be lots of other things that people are saying, I want to leave it as it is. Well, there's no guarantee it's going to end up being stayed as empty property. All right, so at the end of the day, I look at this use for what HCA is doing in terms of trying to mitigate some of the issues, to work with the community, providing a very, again, hopefully minimized in terms of the inconvenience to everybody. And again, it's not even connected by the same road to get there. I think this is ultimately the best use of this property. I think, fortunately, the City Council did that 8 years ago to give us an opportunity to now put something here that will actually help the community in a good way, in a way that minimizes, I think, the effect on the citizens. So again, I think we don't have necessarily the ability to set policy, to sit there and go above and beyond and create that policy. For that reason, I'm going to end up supporting the motion, which I think ultimately complies with the rules and regulations. So with that, can you please call a vote?
Commissioner Ferris?
No.
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut?
Yes.
Commissioner Link?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Chair Lanson?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Ferris dissenting.
As there is no appeal period on a recommendation by the Planning Commission to the City Council, and therefore I don't need to read the appeal process. And that actually is it. So item 7 is adjournment. Thank everybody for coming. This was great to have everybody here. We will adjourn to our next meeting, which is a regular meeting on March 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Good night, Thousand Oaks.